the way they see these players, especially like Nico is like god over there.
They put them on proper celebrity level pedestal.
Yeah, and I think it's like a part of China being semi-isolated, that for them it seems like these people almost aren't real. And when they see them in real life, it's like this is actually a person. He's just like me, you know? And it just like breaks their mind for a moment there.
The world is changing quickly. Shoot it.
The world is changing, but one thing remains the same. Victories with 1xBet.
Sell in-game items at the best prices in just a couple of clicks. We are the biggest instant sell service for in-game items like Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, and Rust. Easy selling process and instant withdrawal of funds to the most popular payment methods. More than 140,000 deals and 50,000 active sellers every month. Use promo code HLTV5 and get a 5% bonus on the sale of your skins. SkinPlace. Sell items now.
Since the dawn of CSGO, we have been there. Observers of all that competition can reveal. Elation, fear, triumph and heartache reach out from every frame. From the small studios and conference rooms to the epic arenas, the feeling is still the same. We live and breathe this game. This was CSGO Through the Lens. Buy now at hltv.org/shop.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Counter-Strike fans across the globe, welcome back to another episode of HLTV Confirmed, brought to you in conjunction by our lovely sponsors, 1xBet. Remember to gamble responsibly, and SkinPlace. If you're in the market to sell some skins, head over to SkinPlace. Let's see what you can get, price-wise, that is. All right, well, I got Prof here, I got Striker here, I got Lucas pressing the buttons. It's been some time, and that means that there's even more to talk about tonight. Now, gentlemen, traveling back from China on Monday, I assume. What's... Any travel stories? Anyone have a good or bad time? Preferably bad. Bad tends to be more funny than good.
We actually shared the flight, me and Milan to Vienna, and it was so empty. I got 4 middle seats for myself. Wow, I was like 187 centimeters of fully flat.
Yeah,
and it was amazing.
Yeah, it was so empty that even I got I could have gotten another. We both, me and my girlfriend, could have each gotten the full 4 seats bed, basically. So, I mean, for a 13-hour flight, that's the dream.
That is the dream. It's like it's the cheap business class, they call that.
Yeah,
it's
one of those
upgrade for.
If you got premium economy, you'd kind of be fucked, because premium economy you can't put down the handrests.
Yeah,
so you're kind of just stuck there in kind of shitty seats. To be honest, less shitty than economy, but not really. And that's it. It was honestly as good of a travel day as it could be. But it's still fucking long. It was fucking long. So I'm still kind of gathering my my senses. How about you?
I'm the same. I arrived in Perth late on Monday night. It was essentially Tuesday morning. And the second flight, both flights were only 5 to 5.5 hours, right? But there was a 5-hour layover in between. So it just felt like a long day. But the body clock's been all over the place.
The way to Perth.
Singapore.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, but I've been all over the place because we were in Romania doing the 3:30 in the morning like wake ups, right, to go into the studio for 5 and everything like that. And then I should be on the same time zone, but everything's kind of fucking wacky. But yeah, we're all home now. Everyone's rested. Everyone's consumed the major. Striker, you were there for so long. Did you lose a lot of weight over there because you weren't being able to eat anything, or did you find food easy? Like, what was that situation?
The hotel was so good that like you didn't really have a. Yeah, it was everything was fine. The food situation outside of the hotel was a bit of more of a problem. Going out to like touristy places and getting some decent bite to eat was not the easiest. But other than that, no. I mean, everything was great. So mainly, really, because of the hotel, like everything, like breakfast were great. There was fucking Flamesy somehow cheated the system and literally asked for a ribeye steak every dinner or at like every lunch that he went to the buffet there. Literally just walked up to the chef and asked for a ribeye.
That's
So that's the kind of place that we were in.
It was pretty nice. I think our photographers were more keen. Mako was super keen on the buffet. He was religiously attending the buffet and every possibility, and just like experimenting with everything available there. So it was good. It was actually, like, I have to say, very smooth experience given everything, the fan situation and fucking crazy. It was quite an eye-opening, I would say, not eye-opening, but horizon expanding experience. I think that's that's one level lower than eye-opening.
Occasionally when we were at the breakfast place, we felt a little bit like Night at the Zoo, because they were literally like, there's kind of like a park right outside of the massive fucking glass window or like glass wall, and so of course every single morning there were fans, just like 20 fans lined up in the park, like next to the railing or whatever, just like waiting for players and just sitting there, and like sometimes having their phone out and like waiting for somebody to pop up. But it really felt surreal sometimes that you just have 20-30 people watching you get breakfast.
Yeah, you could definitely tell that Perfect World had a very good grip on the situation, right? Because we've done some other events in China before, and fans getting or sneaking their way into hotels in a whole bunch of different ways. That definitely happened when we were in Chengdu, right? There's plenty of stories of fans being on the gym on a treadmill wearing jeans, waiting for players to come in and asking for photos and shit. But the entire hotel was just people who were working the event. I only got there for the last week, so we rocked up on Monday. We flew on the final day of the elimination stage. We gathered on Monday, and then we had all day Tuesday off. But yeah, we rocked up, and yeah, everything was contained. There was that help desk at the front counter with a whole bunch of people there who could help you if you had any problems. Like for example, I had an issue because on my passport photos I don't have a beard, but to get Alipay or WeChat working, right, they want identification, so you need to put your passport picture up. And I'd put my passport photo up and it wouldn't recognize me because of the beard. So there'd be days where I'd be able to pay, and there'd be days where I wouldn't be able to pay. But fortunately, I went and asked one of the girls at that front counter, and she got on the phone with Alipay and sorted it all out. Because that's the big thing over there, right? You need to have WeChat and Alipay.
Yeah. Right. We had quite like random issues trying to pay stuff, like because you get to like certain limits or whatever. We're trying to get some gear rental. And then you need to put a down payment for like 2,000 euros for like renting for like a lens for 5 days, and then trying to get that is just random, getting really blocked on every step of the way on like Alipay, WeChat, whatever. And then like thankfully, same thing, like a Chinese guy, and then he can help you out and do stuff because they have like all the verification. They have been using an account for forever, and we come in, set up an account, and then tomorrow I'm trying to spend like 2,000 euros, of course, to get triggers all the like security shit that it can, and then you're stuck there trying to like find an option to like pay for this thing. It's like, obviously have the money, but I can't give it to you in any way, and it sometimes feels very like you feel trapped in this weird system. I feel like how my parents, feel today with everything's digital, can't pay for anything.
Yeah. You can feel helpless though, right? Like that's what I did when I was out, and I was able to pay for one thing, and then I went to pay for the next thing, and it wouldn't work. And I'm there like standing in the middle of the street with my passport next to my face, trying to fucking verify this shit. And I'm like, I can't pay. Like I felt that was the worst part. But once you get the apps going and everything, like it's easy. Like
it's
you can order
crazy,
a DD, it's there in no time.
Like the level of digitalization that they achieved in like 6 years since I was last in China is insane. Literally, you don't have to talk to anybody. You don't have to actually try to have a conversation with somebody, even like when you go out to eat. Literally everywhere there's a QR code that you can literally order your food straight to the table and all that stuff. Like, it's kind of futuristic in Shanghai.
Yeah, I guess. I was a bit disappointed we didn't get to spend more time there because I didn't really have a whole lot of time to head around and see different things like I had in the past. But maybe we go back again. You know, you never know. Maybe we get an opportunity.
I feel like with how this tournament went, I think it would be crazy if we didn't have at least like 2 tournaments, 3 maybe per year in China. Like the fan base is there. Like the viewership is a problem, but that's, I guess, a whole different story. But like there is obviously interest to bring tournaments there. There is like money to put up tournaments, and there's people coming and attending. Like, just, I don't know where we want to take the conversation, but like literally from the start of the opening elimination stages, it was pretty much full every day.
Yeah.
And like Thursday, the arena was packed. I don't remember a tournament that had a Thursday fully packed. So I think whatever people are saying about, we should have it so Europeans can watch it. Like, obviously there's people here that care about Counter-Strike. So like, why not have tournaments there? Doesn't make a lot of sense.
I mean, I saw the take that like we're providing a service to an audience that doesn't exist. I'm like, go to China and tell me it doesn't exist. Like we're in 2 different worlds here. So like, I understand, of course, people will be mad about not being able to watch the matches that they want and all that stuff. But the world doesn't revolve just around Europe, and we do need to have tournaments outside of Europe for other regions to also start thriving, right? And we see that China, like all the player base is there, the audience is there. They actually have a high level of understanding of the game. You can tell from like when you're watching the audiences react to everything and all that stuff. Like, there's definitely a market that is to be served there. And so, to have one major there and I don't know, 5 or whatever it might be, I think that's fine.
It was 1 in 21. So, I think that's pretty good odds, really, when you think about it that way, considering how many years of Counter-Strike we had. And I don't think Valve would be awarding it to that time zone if they didn't feel that they were going to be servicing a certain level of fan base that could enjoy it. But a lot of people were like, well, why don't they just run their games later? But one of the things, and obviously people are aware that, certain things are a bit more restrictive in China. That's the way it is, right? Well, one of those factors is the curfew on how late events can go, which is why the matches had to start when they started. Because if we push past a certain point, you run the risk of potentially just having everything shut down. And then, that's it for the event.
It's an interesting thing because like what we found out, there's not like really a curfew per se. It's more like kind of an unwritten rule of when things should finish. So it's kind of like a thing, like there. It's not like there's this law and you have to stop everything by this time, but it's just not good for, I guess, like public transport. And just when everything closes, they just don't want crowds to like stick around and people not being able to like travel home and having all of these like, I would say logistical issues around events. So that's why it's like it is best for things to end at a certain time. So that's kind of the reason why everything's pushed early, so that it's in the like a safe zone. But yeah, it
was like
sucks.
that in Chengdu. Chengdu was just 11, I think, was the curfew.
Yeah, right. I mean, it kind of sucks because like Singapore is the same time zone, but the matches started a bit later, and then watching in Europe was much easier, and then the viewership was overall higher. So that's another. So it's just kind of shitty that that's not something that can be done. And maybe maybe in Shanghai and Chengdu it can be done, but maybe in some other places in China it's not the same, like different cities or whatever. So that's also maybe a thing to consider. Not like giga expert on all of these things.
Yeah, just giving some answers to maybe some of the questions that the people at home have. But we'll jump into this conversation in a moment, right? Because I think we'll kick off with Skinionaire today. Prof, you said that this is through the history of majors. So we're going back through all 21 as part of this one?
I think so. I'm not sure. Didn't vet the questions. Striker knows better.
I did. I saw the questions, and I mean, you apparently asked for diabolical, and so you're getting diabolical in some ways.
I said spicy.
That's not that bad. It's really not that bad. It's just a little bit kind of rough.
If I missed anything obvious, I'm jet lagged.
Prof, are you doing this?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Prof's going to take to the challenge. All right. Well, for the people who have tuned in at lunchtime over there in Europe, thank you. If we did it at the normal time, it would be quite early in the morning for me. I think I did some last year when I was here, and it was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
I think this is much more reasonable.
Yeah, well, thank you. But we're going to do Who Wants to Be a Skinny Dad, brought to you by Skin Place. Everybody knows the drill, and if you don't, type Skin Place in chat right now. That's your little raffle ticket to enter the draw. Every question that Prof gets right is going to move the slider up. And if he gets the grand prize, maybe you are the lucky winner who takes home a $50 skin that you will be able to, use and shoot some bots in Counter-Strike with, I'm sure. All right, let's get underway. Question number 1. Who of these players is not a double major MVP? Device, coldzera, or JW?
Okay. coldzera is double major MVP. Device, let me just think of the Astralis ones. It was Magisk, Device, DRB. Was Dupree there? I think it was Device 2 times. JW, let me think. This is hard because like back in the day, we didn't really talk about major MVPs that much. And like he was definitely the MVP of the first one. But then it would be Olaf.
Then they got Olaf.
And then Flusha. I think JW.
JW?
Do you want a tip? Do you want to give me a tip?
I cannot. I saw the answer, so
I'm going for JW. I'm going for JW.
Locking in JW. Correct answer is JW. Okay. Yeah, you were doubting yourself there. Look, you knew it was the right answer. You worked it out. You done the one of doubted yourself.
Is it too obvious? One of these.
You even got there. Like there's Flusha and there's Olaf, and that's the 3 majors that Fnatic have, right? So that's it.
Yeah, true, bro.
They have 3.
I expect too many trick questions when we do this shit, though. You know, like it always feels like there's going to be some form of a trap.
I was adding a 4th major to Fnatic, but that's not.
Yeah.
They're not. They didn't go that far.
All right. Question number 2. Has anyone ever won a major in CS:GO as both a player and a coach? Yes or no?
What? This feels. Yes. The answer is Devil Walk. The answer is Devil Walk.
The answer is indeed Devil Walk. Locking in yes. Correct answer is yes. Devil Walk won in 2013.
I was like,
DreamHack Winter. Yeah. And then he took over the coaching job at Fnatic. He made way so that the Olaf and Crims could join the others. So, yeah, there you go. Little history lesson. All right. We're starting well. Everything's going all right. Question number 3. Which of these teams had their final major placement below their HLTV ranking? G2, 3rd, 4th, Heroic, 5th, 6th, Pain, 12th to 14th. Which of these teams had their final major placement below their HLTV ranking?
So what is the bracket? Is the bracket what their final placement is? Okay.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay. Heroic was number 7 or something. So no. G2 were number 1 ranked going into the tournament. So that has to be G2.
Yes.
Answer.
All
G2.
right, locking in G2. Correct answer is G2. These aren't dire. What is going on?
It's not. I was expecting the first one to be one of the other ones. So let's see if that's the next one.
I think the problem now is like I'm confusing VRS and HLTV rankings.
Right.
I look at both quite often now. So I'm like, I got to make sure that I know the difference, or maybe I don't.
Right.
Maybe I'll just
think
correct one of
G2
those
won both,
rankings.
no?
I think they would be number 1 in both. So in this
were.
case, not that. But yeah, I agree with you.
There's trickery elsewhere, you know. All right. Question number 4. How long did it take for Zeus to win a major after his legendary tweet? Oh my God. 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years?
Oh my God.
Well,
So
we know
he
when
won-
he won.
He won in 2017. When would he tweet that? Probably like
When was the
leaving
first
Navi or
major
something?
final he was in? Yeah, like think about that, right? He would have been in a major final, so that probably would have been the inspiration for the tweet. So which major final was he in with Navi?
Would be like Columbus 2016, maybe.
Okay,
When they played with Guardian.
so
Let's
I don't know
try
if
that.
that's good logic.
I don't know what else. I'll go for. How about it was
That'd be 1 year then, wouldn't it?
2016? That seems like too little. I would say I'm going 2 years. I'm going 2 years.
You're gonna hedge. You're gonna hedge.
I'm
with
gonna
2
go
years.
2
All right.
years. I'm gonna go 2
All
years.
right, locking in 2 years. Correct answer is
Everything was so right.
No, bro.
Everything was so
I
right.
took I took you to the water, Prof. You can take the horse to the water,
Bro.
but you can't make it drink, as the old adage goes.
Bro, the funniest thing is I first read this is like, how much time did it take for Zeus to tweet after his major win? I'm like, what the fuck?
But it's not even apparently after Columbus, because it's like July. I was just looking back through when that actually happened. It's July 2016, and Columbus was like some earlier in the year. That's maybe after Cologne. I don't know.
Blood
Hard to
just
say.
tweeted for no reason.
Yeah, I guess he just woke up one day and decided I'm tweeting this. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, Zeus is a bit of a character, as I'm sure everybody would have seen during the show match. So, yeah, okay. And if they're on his Instagram, he does some interesting advertising down there in Indonesia for a LAN cafe by the looks of things. There's some Zeus trivia.
That is some. I can't believe I choked this hard.
You ready to redeem yourself with question number 5?
Okay, let's see what we have here.
All right. Here it is. Question number 5. We can get the $15 skin. Who has never got a major MVP in CSGO and CS2? A major debutante, a runner-up, a player from Asia. Who has never got a major MVP in CSGO and CS2?
And this is a trick question because player from Asia obviously is a Dren and Krakow. Major MVP and major debutant. There's been some, obviously first major JW. And then so runner-up never won a major MVP. It was always the winners in majors. That's it.
Okay. We're going to lock in B,
Can't believe
runner-up, and the correct answer is
Can't
runner-up.
believe I whiffed so hard, bro. This is like the Nico fucking 1v5. And
Nico 1v5.
against Vitality, where is this?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
smashed
Ah.
the desk. Yeah.
Oh,
that's-
yes. Yeah. Okay.
Bro,
I
did
see.
everything
Fair
in
enough. I thought you
yeah.
were keeping it major themed. I thought you were going to talk about the Deagle.
I'm
But,
sorry.
You took it elsewhere.
There's so many,
All right.
so many good whiffs to remember.
Lucky Nico. And we'll talk about him in a minute's time. But that's 4 out of 5 correct. And we'll draw our winner. Lucas is going to whack their name in. It is, it's so far away, man. The laptop is here.
Surmata
I can't-
1914. This is
I hope they weren't born in 1914 because they would be really fucking old right now. But maybe the skin will help them out. So Samata 1914, our people will reach out to your people and we'll get you a $15 voucher for a skin. All right, cool. That is Who Wants to Be a Skinner, brought to you by Skin Place. That is job done. All right. Well, we already had a brief chat about, us going to the major, what it was like, just China, the basic stuff like that. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, I guess I can talk a little bit from the broadcast perspective because you guys were on site, so I guess you weren't getting to view it in the same way as everybody at home. But there were like complaints regarding like the out of sync or delay, and I know on the first day. That was probably when there was the most issues on the Thursday. But just to give people a bit of an understanding, just to give people a bit of understanding of how it all operated. So for the RMRs and the opening and elimination stages at the major, we were all in Romania and we were broadcasting from the PGL studios. So that was where the whole broadcast team was, whether you're a caster, a host, or an analyst. It was only the interviewers who were in China, and that was Parler and Banks. And both of those guys were hired directly by Perfect World. They weren't actually working for PGL, right? We just had their parts on the broadcast. And the Scrawny, myself, Machine, Launders, we all went to China on the last day of the elimination stage. So I think me and Alex casted a game. I don't think Connor and Launders casted a game on that day. They flew that night. I flew in the afternoon. Alex flew I think he flew at night too. We all got to China on the Monday. And as well as us, there was Silvio, who people might be familiar with from PGL, the boss man over there. And then there was 2 Swedish sound guys who used to work for DreamHack, but now I forget the name of their company. It's like Bumble something or other, but they work for that's the one. They work for Silvio and PGL. They were there from that side of things. And then there was 3 other Romanian gentlemen who work for PGL, and that was
observers too.
And 2 observers, yeah. So there was J-Raz who does the context, and there was Chev who does the main observing. So people are probably familiar with a couple of those guys. And that was the team that went over. And essentially, they were, they rock up and they rock up to an empty room with some tables. And then from there, they need to request everything from the translator that they had, a bloke called Josh, who would then, tell the guys from Perfect World what type of equipment and everything they need to get the broadcast going. And there was a few delays, but not from the PGL side, from the Perfect World side in terms of getting the arena ready to go. So we weren't able to go out and even start setting up our caster desk until much later than we had anticipated, because you weren't allowed to go in the arena while they were doing rigging and stuff unless you had a hard hat, and we didn't have any of those things. So things were slightly delayed in that end. But I think I won't get technical with it because I don't actually understand the technical side, but essentially what we were doing, or what we were trying to do, we can't have a feed go from China to PGL in Romania and then back to us to commentate off, because there would be delays, right? Because there were, the distance. So there was a lot of configuring that is way above my understanding of how all this stuff works. And I know that they tweaked a lot of things after a lot of the issues arose on the first day for the next days. And I guess if things get desynced or whatever, that's probably happening on the road to Romania, because they still were doing the finished product from Romania, right? Like, because they had the analyst desk and everything like that. But yeah, come the second, third, and fourth days, I saw a lot less comments regarding some of the issues. And also, just one thing, like, the crowd was relatively subdued on the Thursday. I don't know if you guys were out there, but they definitely weren't as loud on the Thursday as then they started to get for the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They just were quite chill. And something that you mentioned, Striker, which I think Alex and I brought up in a technical timeout during one of the casts as well, is the crowd was like appreciative of good gameplay or exciting moments, but then they would also, like, if they saw a save coming, they would give like a golf clap for a save, like, but they weren't just like constantly yelling for no reason. And they were also felt like they were in a movie, like they weren't talking, they weren't chatting to each other and stuff while shit was going. Everybody was just watching, so it was like quiet at points, and like, oh, okay, so this is a little bit interesting. But then it built in over the course of the weekend. So the whole point of that little ramble I was just on was to give people a little bit more context, maybe on the situation, the setup, and how things were, because I guess there hasn't been a lot of conversation regarding all of that. But from our end, by the time we got the levels sorted and everything like that, what we were getting in our ear and what was being sent and packaged from Shanghai to Romania, I think it all seemed pretty good. But yeah, I know there's always going to be people who are a little bit upset with things, and it probably wasn't perfect, but that was the scenario of how it was, and that's how it was. So hopefully it turned out, good for the people who are watching at home, especially by we got to the Saturday and the Sunday. Okay.
I mean, the crowd is like completely different to like a Cologne crowd, for example. It doesn't feel like the same game in some ways. Like there's no chanting, there's no like singing, there's no like, let's go phase or whatever. There maybe when we got to grand final, there's like a bit of that kind of crept in, but that's not how people in China enjoy games. They like sit down, watch the game, something crazy happens, they react to that, and then they are quiet again until like next thing. So it's a very different experience. And I feel like, I mean, obviously you weren't like casting to the crowd, which is also different, but there's the reactions are like very high, and then very quickly just like nothing.
It dies out very, very fast compared to the West audiences. Yeah,
which is like the longest I've seen during the group stage. The donk situation, the 1v5 was like, actually people got out of their chairs and were like losing their shit for like 15 seconds. And that was one of the craziest things we've seen whole year, right? And if that's something like that happened in like Cologne, that would be insane. Like people just like not the chanting would continue. People would be like dong dong dong, and it would go on for like a minute.
People would be making out in the bleachers, beer would be getting thrown everywhere, there'd be crowd surfing, it'd be pandemonium.
Yeah, but like this was like 15 seconds of like craziness, and then okay, time to sit down again.
Yeah, I want to point one other thing out, because I'm just reading some of the comments in Twitch chat right now. The observing that you guys saw at home was not the observing that existed inside the arena. Yeah. So Perfect World and China had their own observers. So whatever you were seeing at home, there was no point for Chev and JRaz to turn off X-Ray, because it had literally no impact on what the crowd would have been seeing at all. Like literally none, just so everyone's clear. Perfect World even had their own HUD and stuff. Maybe some people went and checked out the Perfect World streams and saw what was going on there. But I will say, that because I felt like I was covering the event, like the Olympics, right? It did feel like when it was happening, I didn't have any issue being like, oh, the crowd surge, and like I didn't have any issue referencing the fact the crowd was getting louder, which was causing the players to be inquisitive of
around.
what's going on, right? And I want to point out one thing as well. Now, I know that this A-Zone stuff, I don't want to slander it because I've only used them a couple of times, but you don't usually see those headsets used, at least by ESL at the big events. They normally use Bose or Sennheiser headsets, which I think are significantly more expensive headsets and traditionally are used in
Don't they use them
helicopters
now
and that type of shit.
in the?
I don't think so.
I need to
Maybe
go
for
back.
EPL or whatever, but I'm pretty sure for like Cologne and Katowice, they're using these like Bose or Sennheiser ones. Like Michał Slavinsky's on holiday in Thailand right now, so I don't think he'll be listening to this episode to be able to tell me, if I'm right or if I'm wrong there. But I'm pretty sure. So I think
I remember
maybe
seeing him when I was in Katowice. I literally saw him pack up those headsets, and I don't think it was the A-Zone. So I think you might be right, but I wouldn't be able to tell.
It is true. It's like the Bose like helicopter kind of thingies, like with the active noise canceling.
Someone
that
in
they
chat
use.
just said, Chad, expensive doesn't equal better. I'll tell you with these, definitely. Definitely equals better.
Yeah, I mean the crowd stuff. It is kind of annoying. I don't know what to even say. It's like the kind of like it's a copy paste discussion about this, and I'm honestly not sure. It like even turning off the X-ray, I feel like wasn't gonna help because like people.
They did it sometimes, but not all the time. I think they could have been more liberal with the turning off of the X-ray.
I think the problem is that like we've seen who was this like the flank on Dust 2 when someone like pushed long. And it wasn't even the action
Liquid?
wasn't no I don't think that was like a highlight moment, but maybe I don't know. But the observer was not following the person doing the flank. They're like the observing was on some player that had his back turned, so like you couldn't even see unless you were looking at the minimap that this guy was making the flank and coming out long. But even from the minimap, the whole crowd started like being like woo, and people reacted to it. So literally would have to do X-ray off, like minimap off, which is honestly a shit experience to watch Counter-Strike like that.
There was another example that is with what you were saying on Ancient. I remember watching in Arena, someone was doing a flank. Maybe it was in the G2 series, and they were flanking B, and they just stayed on Monacy, who was down at the doors the whole time with the AWP, but I think Malbs was flanking Red Room. And this was against FaZe, and he went undetected, and they stayed on Monacy, even though Malbs was clearly making the play. And then when Malbs got there for the kill, they changed him. And I was like, actually, yeah, well done there, right? Like, I think that, you're doing the best with the situation that you have. But the setup, like, I don't know what you guys thought. I thought it was fucking sick. That floor and those LED screens, I have never seen screens in an arena that clear.
It was actually
insane.
It was actually very enjoyable to watch the game in the arena, which is not often the experience because like you can't really see stuff. Like the screen is kind of shit. The kill feed, you can't read it. The minimap, like this was wherever you sit, and we get the press kind of thing that we had. I would say is the worst seats available because they're kind of on the edge, kind of down, But these worst seats were like perfectly enjoyable to watch. There is no like there's one like crane little thingy, what's it called? That kind of sometimes jib that kind of came in. But like if you're in Cologne, you're in the down sitting, like that shit's gonna be in front of you so often. Even not Cologne, maybe Katowice, whatever, and is annoying as fuck. But this was I don't know what is this like a fucking 8K screen, huge. Like it was really good to watch and
insane.
Yeah, really,
so clear.
Really nice.
It was so clear, those screens. And the thing is, because of the way it was, like, so PGO had a bunch of different booths, but the one that we had access to, we were on a corner.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter because the screens were so clear. And then I could just watch with, like, I could see both screens at the same time. So I was like, this isn't an issue for where we were seated or anything like that. So I thought that was great. That setup, though, you boys have heard me fucking bang on about this a million times. That setup would have been perfect to have the radar on the floor in the middle between the two teams because I don't think they would have been able to see anything.
Yeah.
How good would it have been? It would have been perfect because that ground, they used the floor very well, like on the intros and like with details of like what's going on, like what map are we on and who's won what maps and stuff. And it was like really fucking hype. It was sick. But like if they had just added that would have been my Counter-Strike wet dream coming together right there because everything else I thought was immaculate.
I guess the problem is like coaches could see everything, no? Maybe not really everything, but they could maybe see the radar in this setup. I was actually thinking about it when I was sitting there. I'm like, this is Chad. This is fucking propaganda.
That's my dream setup.
Yeah, but someone asked like if coaches could see the screens. Like, no way. Like
No,
they were like
chance. It was
here,
below.
and
They
the
were
screens
below.
were like up and outside of them. So even like reflections and everything was dealt with really well. I don't know if they added some of these drapes for this, but you couldn't see shit. It was like really well thought through.
Someone in chat just asked what the capacity was. So we were told 10,000.
We were told
by
13.
Okay, well, the guy that was our liaison who works at Perfect World. He told us 10.
Okay.
So
I had a more higher up guy, but who knows? Who knows what that means?
well, it depends on. I guess maybe the higher up guy knew he was talking to a guy from a media outlet. Where
maybe.
Because
But
we
the same
wanted
guy-
to
the
know
same
what
guy
we could say
also
on broadcast.
The same guy also gave me the numbers for the first 2 stages, and I actually made the count there, and it fits. So I would
Okay.
believe him.
Okay, I don't think they monetized the booths. They weren't all full. I didn't think.
I mean the boxes.
I
and
didn't
stuff.
see them being. I think they were all kind of for special for like guests and stuff. I
VIP,
think they were
yeah.
mostly like that.
I heard the security number, the number of security people they
Oh
had.
yeah.
Do you want to try and guess for the playoffs and for the group stage?
For the group stage, I wouldn't know because I didn't see the size of the venue.
True, you weren't
so
there,
that's
yeah.
harder for me to guess. But for the arena, so security for the whole venue for just one day,
Yeah.
I reckon for 10th. Let's say I'll go with my figure of 10,000. I reckon 1,000 people.
It was
Whoa.
500.
Well, I overshot because of
Yeah.
China.
Yeah.
So
But like for the group stage, it was 200, which I thought was like, that's actually kind of crazy. But I think the number of staff is just insane that they had, because like security, it was, even to get to the hotel, it was like a 2-layer security. Like you have a guy outside, and then if you get past that guy, there's a guy at the entrance of the hotel also. Like every time, like 3 times in the same day, the guy was like, "Where's your badge?" And I'm like, you literally stopped me like an hour ago, and I left it in my pocket, so I'm taking it out. Or like I left it in my room, so I had to go to like the check-in desk and then like get verified there and stuff. Like they're super strict. It was, but in a good way. Like it's because there is every reason. There was one time we're coming back from somewhere, like a bunch of the HLTV guys. We come out of the hotel, and there's like fans on one side, fans on the other side, and there's this girl, not Asian, like Caucasian, white, and she just kind of slides into our group and is like trying to go inside with us. And the guy's like, badge. And she's like, "Oh, I'm a family, something. And the guy is like, not taking it at all. And just like shoos her away. It was like, no way. It was super, super strict.
yeah, there was I think like it's got its pros and its cons for sure. Like the first time I left the hotel, I didn't know that I was meant to have my badge on me at all times.
Yeah.
So I just had to use my room card, and I was like, "Well, I'm staying here. Like, here's my room." And they let me back in because I went for a walk on that first night. I didn't fall asleep, and I walked past that horde of people that you were talking about, Striker, who's standing outside the restaurant, and it's fucking like 7 degrees outside. And I'm like, what are you guys standing out here for? So that like you can wave
Like
at
for
Monarchy
hours
and then
in
a
the
little
morning,
zoo.
man. It's crazy.
So they were there all night as well. So what the fuck is going on here? But yeah.
I don't know if
Okay.
I told you, just like last little anecdote, which I misspelled here for
I'm
the
on
show.
lag, right? So I have like almost 400 ping. So just my
No,
things
no,
are going to be
it's
slightly delayed.
All good. No, but essentially just to get like this insight of fans in China and stuff, I went to McDonald's one day and accidentally left the badge out. So of course I got approached by some 2 guys, and they're like, "Oh, you work here? You work for the game?" I'm like, no, I work for like a media, something. And they're like asking questions, and they're like, "Oh, so you see the players all the time?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Can you get me an Nico signature?" I'm like,
Oh my God.
No, I'm not gonna do this. I can't. You can't do this. They're like, "Oh, okay. So who do you work with?" I'm like, HLTV. He's like, "Oh, you work on TV? That's so cool." I'm like, "No." They have no idea what the HLTV is. I'm asking like, so how do you watch the matches? He's like, TikTok. TikTok is his way of like consuming Counter-Strike, which is so crazy. And then he was like, "Yeah, do you think Nico is gonna sign stuff for like us? We're gonna wait around." I'm like, "I have no idea, And he's like, "Yeah, we came in yesterday. We're leaving tomorrow. We have tickets for 1 day. Last night we were like waiting outside, didn't see anyone. But this morning we saw like G2 go for a walk, and like Nico waved at me, and it was so crazy." I'm like, this is so like the way they see these players, especially like Nico is like a fucking god over there. it is literally, I don't know even what to like connect this. This is like me as a child seeing like
They
I
put
don't
them on
know,
proper celebrity level pedestal.
yeah, and I think it's like a part of China being semi-isolated, that for them it seems like these people almost aren't real. And when they see them in real life, it's like, fuck, this is actually a person. He's just like me, you know? And it just like breaks their mind for a moment there. So it's the fandom level is just, it's a completely different ball game to what we have in Europe.
The Valve devs were there. I had a chat to them a little bit,
Yeah.
but I'll have to get my brain whirring into action before I can remember what we talked about and what would be worth, maybe imparting on our viewers. Let's get into the Counter-Strike, shall we? Let's
do that.
Let's start at the tippy top of the tree. I guess we can talk about Prof and myself being right from our time capsule. We absolutely smashed it, Prof. We both said Donk and we both said Spirit. And Striker, just to make things interesting, he said Mouse would win. To be fair, they weren't far off. They did lose to Spirit, yeah. So not a terrible crack, but Spirit obviously the eventual winners. First time for the major. First time, obviously, that we've had somebody at the age of 17 winning a major. Not only that, but being MVP. And Donk went back into that absolute beast mode form that we saw him start the year with. And for a team that's had some up and downs and looked a little bit rocky and shaky, they, played some great CS to close out the year. So congratulations to Team Spirit. Now that grand final against FaZe, I guess let's focus in on Spirit, I suppose, and then we can slowly go down the tree and talk about whatever we have to. Because coming into this event, I think that there was conversations about, it's not looking great over there. Maybe they need to make a roster change, and then there was that interview from Chopper. This was a while ago, saying, there won't be a change before the major.
Still on Cologne, I think.
Yeah, so that's more than fair enough. And then I even know during the major, like Magix was getting a lot of flack, but then he showed up massively in the semifinal and the grand final as well. Like the grand final performance from Magix was just inspired. Like he was very, very impactful across that series. So shout out to Boris the Butcher one time.
Yeah, so crazy it is that he literally ended the year with an EVP. I mean, this is going to come out in a couple of hours probably. I think Harry's working on it now. We gave him an EVP for that finish because that is literally Spirit would not have won the major without Magix. Like that's unequivocal. I think at this point that's how good he was towards the end. I think matching even Donk for that final. So like I really, really, really can't stress it enough, especially if you look at how Shiro kind of disappeared on a couple of occasions. Zontex didn't have the best final, all that stuff, and how close it ended up being. Of course, it was kind of like the fake, quote unquote, fake comeback. So maybe it looked closer than it could have been originally, but it wouldn't have. I don't think it would have even ever gotten there without Magix. So that was crazy, crazy big step up at the most important time you could imagine.
I think the thing for me that was interesting, because I saw like a Reddit headline after their reaction, and the reaction was like, Magix doesn't even give a fuck, or, like whatever the headline was. But essentially that was the sentiment. And it's so curious to see.
Fucking fake news per day is insane. The rating is skyrocketing these days. It is insane amount of bullshit over there these days.
It's like the CNN at the moment. But, I look at his reaction, and to me, I take that as one of like disbelief, letting that kind of sink in. Like the thing that you as a Counter-Strike player want to achieve the most in this world is winning a major, right? And he'd been at, I think maybe this was his 6th major. I'd written all the notes down, but I threw the notebook away. I think it was his 6th. It was either his 5th or his 6th. I'm pretty sure Chopper was at 9. I think Chopper was at 9.
He played since Antwerp, no, and there's been
5th. It's 5th since Stockholm.
It's
even 5th. It's 5th.
Yeah. Okay, 5th or 6th. Yeah, it's just what. But yeah, and for the way that their kind of year was a bit rocky in the middle and everything, and but I guess not even only that, right? Like just winning, everybody's going to have a different knee-jerk reaction in that moment. Right? Like some people are going to burst out with elation. Other people are going to sit there and like have that moment like wash over them of is this even real? So everybody's going to take that differently. But the thing that I think was, I don't know how to frame it, because to me, it's slightly funny, but in the cruelest way. But it also, I think it just came from a place of Donk being someone who's been taught to be a good sportsman, right? Like the first thing you do after a match is you go and shake hands. So he wins. They jump around for a little bit. He does the real life donk slide, or donk strut, maybe we should call it, across the stage and just stands there waiting to shake hands while FaZe are in absolute disbelief and heartbreak of losing another major final, 2 in the same year. And this is another thing I was reading. Some people are like, oh, is this kid like partially autistic? Like, doesn't he understand? Or why isn't he celebrating with his team? And it's like, well, I think he was just going to shake hands and say good game. Like that was what I took from that moment. I don't know what you guys thought.
I mean, the kid is also 17. It's not like he has everything down. It's like how everything's supposed to be. Like he's just won a major final, and you're looking at exactly how he's behaving. And like, if he's cocky or not cocky or whatever it is. I thought it was so amazing that he was the one, like especially with the hands in pockets. Like it was just such a fucking anime villain type shit that there was just, I couldn't help but respect it, like laugh at it.
No, I mean, realistically, there must be at least like 20% kind of
like swagger or whatever.
Also bantering, just the Kerrigan, not quote, but the comment from the Katowice game.
Spaghetti arms.
There must be like
maybe that's why his arms are out.
Yeah, just obviously he's not coming there to like BM them in this loss, but he did celebrate, like he did come up to like Magix, who was just like blank stare into the void, and then it's like, okay, let's get on with this, like let's get this done. I mean, I think his whole demeanor since like over all of that is just like, yeah, we won. What now? I think the funniest thing about Donk, but most interesting thing that I kind of realize now is that he has no way of interpreting how big this is and how good he is in this game, because everything came so naturally. I don't want to say easy, but like he's just doing it all. He's just doing it all. And on one hand, you have Donk playing his like second major, and he is winning the major. And you have someone like Nico, who's played, I don't even know how many, 15 or so, and still doesn't have one. And I don't think Donk can like appreciate fully how big of an achievement it is, like winning a major MVP, breaking all of these records. For him is just another Sunday in this case. And it's kind of insane. He's just like pushing all of these boundaries that we had. And people ask him like, how are you doing this? It's just like, whatever, I'm just doing the thing, and that's it. He hasn't had the struggles to the same degree. Like, his bad tournaments was like 105 rating, against like the best teams in the world, where the rest of his teammates were also playing super shit, right? It's not like he was some like anchor pulling them down in some of these games. He just didn't go nuclear to carry everyone through. So I think it's a very interesting phenomenon that we have here with Donk on our hands.
I think it's a key point that you're making there, right? Because other players, like, it's not that he hasn't played a lot of Counter-Strike. He has a shitload of hours, right? That's not really the question. But it's more, this is his first year in Tier 1, and what he's been able to accomplish within this year. And I suppose that you need to kind of give the same to Zontix, but he's a little bit older. So the reason I guess we're framing it this way is because we have this, kid from Siberia who's just a monster, and he's doing it not as an AWPer, but as a rifler, right? That has to be the thing that can't be understated, right? Like the fact that he is a rifler and he's having this level of output, but it's bang on. Like he can't possibly appreciate how big this is just because he's so new to this level of Counter-Strike. And then you have to ask yourself, well, what comes next, or what is possible for him? Like, how far can they push this? But obviously they do help facilitate him, but why would you not help facilitate him? The proof is literally in the pudding. Like that round on Ancient where Magic saves the AK, and then I'm just on Magic's POV in the CSTV, and the first thing he does is just drop the AK to Donk, and then he goes into that next round and he gets an ace. And sure, he maybe trades 1 or 2 of the kills, but how many players could you give an AK to that are going to trade 1 or 2 of the players consistently and then fucking ace the round? Like, I know they didn't win that map. I know that it was essentially a blowout, but we're talking about his like individual output, not necessarily, how the team approached that or how that map went from a team perspective. But like, it's just that's
but you
it.
can
Like,
also see he has the team play aspect down, because like there were also situations, where they had like a weird mishmash buy, and maybe he got an AK at first and then he got the first kill, but then he went down to like 15 HP
and he dropped it.
and he
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
dropped it away and then baited for his teammate instantly. Like just took the pistol, baited for his teammate when they went out. I don't remember which game this was when they went out ramp. I think it might have been against FaZe, the final, no? Even the first map, but like he dropped the gun to the teammate and then went to bait with 15 HP with a pistol first. Like it literally first thing he did was after that was instantly like drop it away and then did everything for them to win the round. So it's not even the same level of like him being set up as a lot of the other people who are like considered the biggest stars of their team. Like it's kind of crazy how much he can also do on his own. I mean, we were talking about how in the group stage he took a little bit of a step back, kind of being more set up. Like Chopper was definitely baiting more for him, or like he was just running in first for him much more. He went down to something like 20% opening attempts, compared to his 30 plus average usually. And then he went into the playoffs and then just like immediately started destroying everybody, like literally running out first all the time, and like the same shit that he was doing in Katowice, maybe just to a slightly smaller degree, like because that kind of a level is pretty fucking hard to hit in the first place, let alone the second time. So just like people that think that he's being set up or whatever, like it's not even that. It's like he's just so fucking good.
Yeah, there's that video on Reddit that apparently was taken from a Chinese platform of some variety, right, that shows a lot of the deaths of the people throughout the major getting donked on, right? And his time to kill that's the insane part, which obviously he needs to have very good crosshair placement to do that, but he's doing that on such a consistent basis. I wanted to bring up something here for an interesting conversation around some of the vernacular that we use, because where is it here? It's hard to call Donk a rookie. He has more CS2 hours than Get Right.
Maui's
take, right?
Yeah. So I read the Maui take. I didn't follow like as the discourse continued, but I saw the statement, and I kind of agree, like in a way, because I've had a weird relationship with using that word, but I guess the way that it's being used in this context is like rookie year of tier one,
yeah,
only elite level tournament Counter-Strike, right? Like is that the framing that you guys look at it through too?
You know what? Every word is made up. First of all, and every meaning is like depends on what you decided to mean. Like, so I feel like it is up to us to define how we want to define it and what makes sense for Counter-Strike. First of all, Counter-Strike is not baseball and is not football and it's not fucking, I don't know, Olympic rowing or whatever. So like we don't have same seasons or anything that other people do. There's no like NBA draft in Counter-Strike, so we kind of have to define things a bit differently. So it is about what makes most sense. If some people disagree about using the term and they want to use it differently, that's fine, but like the way we approach it, I think just makes most sense. Is it is rookie to tier one, just like NBA is rookie to like playing in the NBA, not playing basketball for the first time in your life. I don't think that makes a lot of sense, because no one's going to be good at basketball without playing a shit ton of basketball. Same thing with Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
I think that the expectations and the standards have changed because people start playing much younger. There's academy teams. There's all of these things that are set up to make you good in Counter-Strike before you kind of step into the tier one scene. And there's so many layers below the tier one that you need to go through these steps to get there. Like if you go and play Counter-Strike in 2013 and you're pretty good, you just go to a BYOC and you might play the major. Like that is not how things function these days. Like you need a lot more behind
the barrier is much bigger. Yeah.
If I'm completely honest, I think the Maui Snake take is completely ridiculous. But if you can use different terms for different things, but I think rookie for this, what Donk is doing is completely adequate. This is his rookie year in tier one Counter-Strike, just like Bits was when he joined Navi in 2021, and other players that we had over previous years that just came in and destroyed in their first year. ZywOo is also a perfect example of someone that played in tier 3 and then made the jump to Vitality, and whatever he did before in like ESEA Advanced has no like bearing on tier 1 Counter-Strike. That's like completely different worlds for me.
Yeah, but I also don't think that Maui Snake meant it in a way where like we shouldn't call him rookie. It's more like that it's interesting about how different the path
Yeah.
can be towards the tier 1, because of course you can have a guy who will just turn up. I mean, Zywo was to that to some degree, or even Code Zero. Like maybe Code Zero is a better example. He just got dropped into the best team in the country kind of almost overnight, and he didn't play that much more outside of, I mean, I don't even think he played anything outside of Brazil up until that point, and then literally his first year in the tier 1 scene, he immediately was also #1 player of the year, won 2 majors, right? So from that perspective, like it is a bit different, and it's like you have different paths towards the top. And I think, I mean, we just have to put the barrier somewhere, right? Like, because we can't just decide like first time you play against the top 30 team, you're going to be a rookie, because before you actually get to any sort of decent tournaments, it could be 100 maps against top 30 teams, that you're going to get there, so. And the fact that you have many hours in the game, I mean, that's same thing for me. It's like, of course, like a kid who starts playing football at 5, like he's gonna have like 10,000 hours before he ever plays a professional game as well, like it's the same thing. So it's kind of ridiculous to set it at like by an hour standpoint or anything like that. Anyway, I don't think that Maui was actually trying to be contentious with that. I think he was just trying to say that it is weird how different things can be between two players and how they reach the top.
Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting little conversation. That's all. So look, as far as this goes, I don't know if there's much more to add regarding Spirit, right? Like I'm trying to think, like for example, Shiro didn't necessarily have the best time. I think one of the two of you referenced that just before. Like he didn't play to his absolute best, which could be a worrying sign if they're in like a lot more finals and he continues to be a little bit absent in those games. Obviously, they do rely on Donk a lot, and in that final, they were fortunate to have Magic showing up in the way that he did, right? Because the conversation at the moment goes like Zontix is your third star, because it's meant to be like Donk, Shiro, and then I guess it has to be Zontix just based off of things that we've seen. But for Zontix as well, like I saw Hooch, right? And Hooch, we had chatted to him a couple of days, and he kept asking our predictions. And the day of the grand finals, like Hooch, is there anything in the scene like that we have the language barrier? Is there anything in the scene regarding these players that you could tell us that maybe would be usable for us in a cast, something that could help? And he ended up sending me a message on Twitter, and he was like, oh, look, I don't know, like Constantine knows them better. He'll send you a list. So I ended up sending Alex a list, but there wasn't really anything on here that we could really use. Like one thing was Magix loves cheese sandwiches with ketchup. And I was like, I don't know how I can work that into a grand final cast. Like there was one thing that's interesting and might say a lot about Zontix. It says Zontix reads a lot, and it's books like How to Improve Your Cognition, Mind, and Body. He is a serious person, and Rops is his favorite player.
This is like nothing. None of this just surprises me. Like, let's just say that.
But that, like regarding like Zontix, right? Like he does strike me as the guy who's very considered, but the way that it comes across in interviews and stuff is it's like he doesn't care. I don't think it's that he doesn't care. It's that maybe he's just like not suppressing.
I think he's just very cerebral about everything, and he doesn't really take anything. I mean, as much as it's kind of a meme that he's a robot or whatever, he doesn't show emotion. I think to a degree he is that way, and just takes everything. He's a bit of a Sheldon or whatever, however you want to call it, kind of very strict in terms of how technically he's thinking about everything. He doesn't think about things in terms of feelings, but about how they really happened, like factually, rather than how they made him feel or whatever happened. And it's like he's not even when he's saying something about another team. He said he had several of those lines throughout the year, but it was like comfortable matchup for us, things like that.
Yeah,
that almost sounded like BM, but like talking to him, I can tell he doesn't mean it in any bad way towards another team. It is really just how he's thinking and just how it makes sense to him, right? So it's again, none of this surprises me whatsoever.
Just very objectively thinking about things, and like when most of us will, if you were in this situation, you kind of find angles how to make it make sense for you. Like, oh, we lost this game. You kind of find not excuses, but like reasons. And he's just like, yeah, we played bad.
Just gaslighting yourself.
We played bad. We have a bad mentality, and all of these things that he said over the year that were kind of hilarious in some ways. I mean, even I don't know if it was the post match or like the press conference when he's like, I'm very happy right now, even though you can't see it on my face. and it just fucking cracked me up so much. He was like the most straight face, like I'm very happy right now, but you can't see it, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
They all went
It's
up
a
to one
banger.
of their rooms. I think one of them was staying across from me, and they're taking selfies in the bathroom mirror. I'm like that was what they were doing after the major grand final. It's like, okay, yeah, cool.
We
I
saw the
guess. So
Magic
that's what you
Swan.
guys.
We saw the Magic
Yeah.
Swan on Reddit. I think Chopper retired super early from not retired, but like left the after party first. He was like full.
You chose a very horrible term for that. That was like, where's that coming?
you know, it is. You come into the after party, you retire from the after party. It's a very important moment in every evening. The rest of the gang were hanging out. I think at least a bit more lively than Virtus Pro when they won the major. I have to give them that. That's the low bar, the lowest bar I've ever seen.
I think we
Fair
still
enough.
have to get through to a lot of these guys. I mean, I think Magix, you can kind of tell what he's about. Zontix, you can kind of tell what he's about. But Donk is very different between English and when we do like Russian interviews. Like he just obviously is much more prolific in his own language, and you can tell that there's still kind of limitations to how much he can express himself in English, even though he's like trying more and more. But I'm still not sure if I'm saying kind of a facade or how much of what he's saying about, that he doesn't care about the top one, doesn't care about the MVP, doesn't care about being the youngest, like he doesn't give a shit about anything. Like I don't think I buy that from like other interaction I see around him, because he also seems like he is taking some of these things to heart, even though like he doesn't want to really show it. There was like a little moment where I had like an interview with Chopper after one of the playoffs games. I don't remember if it was the first one or the second one, but I had Chopper for an interview and asked him about how it looks like they're using Donk differently between the groups and the playoffs, because in the playoffs you could see him that like he always wanted to be the one coming up first. He was always going for opening duels constantly. Like you saw that on that Ancient instantly against Mouse, that they were just constantly going for fights, and like sometimes it was going against him, and you could tell that it's just like to the detriment sometimes of their rounds, that he's just trying to take things too much into his own hands. And I just asked him about this development and like whether that was something they were thinking about, not thinking about. I wasn't really super appreciative of the answer, because it didn't really tell me much other than that they just play differently against different teams, and it seemed like such a big shift that it felt more like that it came from Donk, and I was trying to get that out of Chopper. But like literally midway through that answer from Chopper, Donk comes up to this circle that I had with the translator and Chopper, like, so we had like this little triangle.
I think
Donk
I heard
comes
this on the
in.
interview. Yeah.
Donk comes in and like completes kind of the circle between us, and he's just like standing there in front of me, and like just like listening to Chopper, and he's like just like nodding along as he's talking about. And then as Chopper finishes the point, he just goes and leaves. Like that's all he does, And I'm like, so what was that about exactly? Like, what does that mean? Like, was Chopper just bullshitting me, or like was it just something, or are you just like fucking with me? Like, what is
Is
going
he
on?
trolling
Like,
you? Like,
is
Yeah.
he trolling me? Is he like, does he really not think? Like, I really didn't know what to make of the guy a lot of the time, when I see him interact with in certain situations. So I feel like there's still a lot that we don't know about this team and kind of how they think about things. I think Shiro, you can also kind of tell that he's much more emotional. He will just also feel that more during the game. Like you can see that. But like those two, Chopper and Donk, sometimes feel like there's still a lot that we're not getting out of them, and maybe that's just because of the language barrier.
well, this is Constantine said. This is about Shiro. Shiro actually understands English. He's just very shy.
No,
So,
he understands. Yeah.
yeah. We got to get more Shiro interviews. I think I read a comment as well before when we referenced that Shiro, it went a little bit missing. Someone said, "Oh yeah, but the clutches, right? Obviously, he had to win some clutches." But I think it is more when you are the second star of the team and you're the AWPA, you need to kind of have a bit more dominion over the game. And it didn't feel like he had that in some of those. So it's definitely not to be a dig at Shiro at all. I think he even tweeted and said that he didn't play the best. I think that I remember that. Yeah. Okay. Do we want to move on from this and talk about, FaZe, I suppose, would be the next most logical?
A little ad break, because I need to.
Yeah, we can take an ad break. Yeah, let's do it. Lucas,
Yeah,
run an ad break.
nice.
We'll be right back.
The world is changing quickly. Shut up.
one thing remains the same. Victories with 1xBet.
SkinPlace launching an event with a total prize pool of $10,000 in honor of our first anniversary. Just sell skins, claim daily bonuses, complete missions, visit the shop, and participate in the main giveaway with popular skins and a powerful PC. Follow our social media to not miss.
Since the dawn of CSGO, we have been there. Observers of all that competition can reveal. Elation, fear, triumph, and heartache reach out from every frame. From the small studios and conference rooms to the epic arenas, the feeling is still the same. We live and breathe this game. This was CSGO Through the Lens. Buy now at hltv.org/shop.
We're back. Striker's just making a coffee. Prof had to run to the bathroom, and I had to open a window because it's just fucking hot. Today was 36, so it's quite warm inside right
Bro,
now.
that's
Striker's okay.
Coffee very fast. I wanna do my show and tell moment right now.
Oh, what do you got?
I got the
The smoke water bottle.
1.5 liters. Nice design, see through. You can see how much water you have. It's very light, has a little strap here. It's banger. It's nice. First time using it. So we'll report later
Let's go.
with a 6 month
Nice.
review.
I have
What
an
else did you guys
extra-
buy?
I bought the jacket. That was
Okay.
the base one. The little high cap from my girlfriend. The hat.
Okay,
that's like doing the little thing with the ears.
That's
we
more or less
got.
it. Did you get the agent?
I did.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
kind of lazy, but probably should have. I got the Psyduck from China. This is literally me.
Well, yeah,
It's
very
literally me
Counter-Strike.
preparing for the HLTV awards every day. This is how I feel.
I got the welcome like thing that all the players got, the case.
teapot?
with the
Yeah, we
tea
got
set
that
and stuff,
too.
so that was
It was
nice. And I
very
also
fun.
bought some socks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there were
Yeah.
socks. The teapot
Yeah.
confused the shit of the TSA agent or whatever, the customs person when I got to Croatia. It was like, oh, you're coming from China. Okay, we need to take a look what you have. And then I was explaining what I got, and she's like, what is this? And I'm like, it's a teapot. And it's like, it looks like a drill or something. And I'm like, kind of does. It looks like a fucking power tool, you know, that you would
Yeah, I
bring.
guess.
So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna open it, and she's like, it's like a children's thing. I'm like, yeah,
Well, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah. Well, they did cutesy up everything, right? They're the first people who have ever like made Counter-Strike into these weeby type looking fucking
Yeah.
animated things.
merch
Whereas
is-
normally
the
we
merch
don't
is
go that
actually
angle.
Giga banger. Actually, by far best merch I've seen. It's just everything
Really
looks so
good.
cool.
Really nice,
So,
yeah.
so, but obviously, different story. Perfect World is like Valve official partner for China, you know, so they have probably rights to do any type of merch and all of these things. It's a different situation than any TO or anyone else in the world has. So they have some advantages there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's get into this phase conversation. So let's pick up where we left off. I guess the grand final, it's not just the grand finals, the whole bracket run, and it all essentially started in the elimination game against Furia, where Rops found his form. And then from that point, Rops was in like actual god level mode. He was a beast.
Contention like level, insane.
Well, that's the thing. I had to check with Striker. I had to be like on the day of the grand finals, like, Rops can't win the MVP, can he? And Striker was like, well, if Donk shits the bed completely and Rops continues to play the way he does, then maybe, because he was playing some of the best Counter-Strike it's felt like he's played since what CS2 first came out, right? When CS2 first came out, he was
pretty much
he
like
was
the
owning.
first few months.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he was in great form, and it was like a lot of classic phase moments, you know, of things that they shouldn't be getting away with that they were. And there was like a lot of, you could tell that everything was flowing. And the problem is that, well, I don't know if it's the problem, but it's literally the same story as what I told at like the start of the year, because Spirit was in such good form. And FaZe was in good form at that time too. But the conversation was still, well, FaZe, this is what they get out of bed for. This is where they do their best work on the stage. This is their home. And that's what the thing was. Again, getting into playoffs, it was like, well, it hasn't looked great for FaZe, and then the but turned out to be true. At least, up until, they started to bring Dust2 back, and they were very strong on Ancient. It was just that first map that I think that they looked like they had returned to their former selves. But I don't know what to make of this conversation, because it was entertaining. Rops played really well. It was classic FaZe nonsense and shenanigans, which is extremely fun to watch. But that's all it is. Like, I don't know. We could dissect more about the players and the final.
What is the future? What does this mean for the future? Like, it feels like we're just treading water in the story and doing it over and over again. I think overall, I think if we just do broad strokes of the major, what we spoke about before, who the favorites are, who has a chance to win the major, that did come true. I think the whole, there's this Mongols hype train, which I think was a bit pre. It's a bit early for something like that, let's just say.
I'm not so sure about that, to be honest. Considering how the quarterfinal went, Senzu doesn't shit the bed and they win. They beat Maus, and then who knows what happens after that, So I feel like there was, of course, that's the but, that's when are we going to see them, play at this level? So of course that was the barrier.
And we know that these other teams are really good. We know Vitality is really good, but then, I also feel like these narratives this whole year have been really ridiculous, how fast we turn on teams, not turn negatively, but even more positively, being oh no, obviously Vitality is going to, they're shown this great consistency of winning, let me check notes, one tournament in the year. Is how are they now giga favorites to make the final, win the major? It doesn't make sense. This is much closer than we constantly are portraying it. This is not some crazy scenario that they're giga favorites. Even the FaZe game, FaZe had 3-0 odds by bettors, by betting companies and stuff before, which was pretty big, but we know this is possible. And just in the game, some Vitality players, some rounds, some underperformances, but realistically is FaZe just playing the level that we know they can play, and maybe even above, I would say, for individuals like Rops, Brokey having his moment and stuff like this, and then obviously they just win. And this is the reality of Counter-Strike right now. It's not there is no crazy way to explain this, except it just is what it is. It is what we have been seeing this whole year. It's just plus minus 5-10% in performance, and you win 2 games that you realistically maybe shouldn't have, or weren't expected to. Yeah,
I mean, you can also see the difference between how, for them it is the time to step up, while for others it is kind of a time to choke almost for certain individuals. For some teams, of course, if you look at the semi, it's not that I'm gonna go out and call Nico and m0NESY and Choker or whatever, but they were the ones who fell off, right? And then FaZe take advantage of that. They're the ones who step up in those moments, and everybody else is more kind of concerned whether they're going to be able to match the sort of level that they can play at, outside of the biggest moments, right? So that's almost epitomized the difference between FaZe at this tournament and all the other big teams, effectively. Their mentality, their resilience in general, being able to come back from these from the deficits, and then just going into the playoffs knowing that they are obviously not the favorites, but that they have that level to reach. So it just, I don't know what it is about, whether it was also something tinged by the whole situation that was around Kerrigan, heading into the playoffs just so quickly after, or it's heading into the major so quickly after his brother died. And they just looked like there was a different aura around FaZe as we always have them in the playoffs, but there was another level to it this time around. And also it kind of coincided with the teams that we expected to turn up not turning up. I mean, G2 I think is definitely going to be looking at themselves and thinking they didn't turn up individually to that, because they didn't have any of the big 3 turn up for that semifinal, and even then they still had a chance to win, so it definitely felt like FaZe were just taking advantage a lot of the other teams not quite turning up to the level that they can play.
But that's what the stage games are about, though, right?
Course,
and that's where the FaZe conversation is. I think the player, obviously Kerrigan, right? It's high level calling in those type of games, right? It'd be nice if he could have more individual impact. But Frozen was the one that stood out for me like a bit of a sore thumb. And the problem was he didn't look like he was aiming, right? Like he looked like he had put his crosshair generally where it needed to be and start shooting. And I was like,
round,
bro,
the round
that long.
The round that long. I mean, obviously they won it at the end, but like that's just the perfect example. I felt like Malbs against FaZe was the same thing. I felt like Malbs was just like shooting his load early, like he wasn't fully strafing out, taking the duel like he can and does usually. There's this like urgency, there's this like kind of fear that you don't have that much time that you usually have. And I think these are things that happen in big games, and for when the pressure comes in.
Well, that's the key
that you don't
there,
play,
right?
or you don't play like you normally play, and that's just it. It's not the stage, it's not the crowd, it's the importance of the moment. And it kind of goes back to why Donk is so good, because Donk does not understand how big this is. For him, it's big tournament. Yeah, you need to do well, but he doesn't have all of this like the mental load of the importance of the moment. This team's gonna break up, like all of this build up. He just doesn't perceive it the same way, and it just came crumbling for G2 in that game. It was kind of horrible to watch, and then also just unfortunate in some ways. Like the ways Nico died behind the smoke is like, okay, it happens.
Yeah.
Any of those situations happen, but somehow they all happened in the same game. And I don't know what else he could have done in some of these. Like he goes fast, he gets spammed through smoke. He goes slow, he gets spammed through smoke. He goes in front of the smoke, he's gonna die through to an op. Like it kind of it just felt like there is no option for him. And then he needed the teammates to show up and do something, but they didn't.
Yeah. Obviously, Modesty didn't have the best showing either. Like, are we done with the FaZe conversation, you think, or we just kind of pick it up and see where it like lands?
I think
we bring them up again.
Okay, go ahead.
I think the question is like, what is the future?
That's the main takeaway.
Are there going to be changes? How many changes? Why? I think this is like a whole different story. We probably get in, maybe not even today, maybe in a future episode when you have more
information. Maybe Striker has for us later, but we'll save that until a little bit later on. But I just want to ask a favor of the viewers for me quickly, because I couldn't point this out on the last round because it's the literal last round. But can somebody go for me right now, if you can, on your computer, because I only have a laptop, download the demo, go to the final round of Dust 2. Does Brokey get bumped when he's throwing that smoke? Or does he just misthrow it? I would like to see.
Okay. Which
really.
Smoke are we talking about?
Well, it probably didn't hard to notice, but
when
he
they were
threw a
retaking
smoke and it came back off the doors, and it forced them as they were trying to come in through the door smoke. Right. It was only visible for them as they were mid doors. So I thought maybe he got bumped by a teammate as he was doing, but he might have also just fucked it. So yeah, people are just saying he missed, but that literally could have made a difference, because they wouldn't have had to worry about tunnels. And it also as they were coming through doors, I think a player got killed and then traded. I think, but it would have made it less cumbersome.
Minutia of everything, man. Like, look at the fucking round before that, or whichever it was, where Robs had the jumping up, and then like he survived by 3 HP because Magic dinks him through a corner of a wall or something. Yeah. Like, it's kind of crazy.
Oh no, that's the org at that range.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So there was
if it was an AK, he would have won.
I didn't go back through it to see about it, but like obviously, leaving him with 3 HP, like somebody might have hit him just before. Like, so little decided for it to even get to that point, because there were 2 rounds that Spirit probably should have closed, and kind of classic FaZe bullshit happens, and they pull it all the way to the end. Just the very last round, that's the only one that where the clutch actually went against them. So I mean, I wanted to kind of talk about one thing which just kind of hit me, and even though it's not like a big revelation, but when I was thinking about it yesterday, I was going through it back just to make sure that I had the math right. But Kerrigan is, I think, a combined 16 rounds away from being a 4-time major champion.
Jesus.
Isn't that crazy? Because it's 1 in Boston. They were 15-11 on Cloud9 in the final. one round from being a double major champion. If you backtrack, it doesn't work this way. You can't really say like who knows what would have happened if he had won that major with FaZe and blah blah blah, all that stuff. But like looking back, how barely he missed the majors, like that's obviously the one that everybody remembers. That's like the big heartbreak, massive Cloud9 comeback, right? And then Copenhagen, they were first map they were like 9-8 up or something like that. Then they destroyed the second map, and then it came down to Inferno where they got slammed, of course. And then here they were effectively 5 rounds away from, 1 round away from overtime, 4 more rounds away from winning the game and taking another major, So like thinking about just how different Kerrigan's legacy might have been at any of these points, like if he wins the first one, if he wins in Copenhagen, if he wins here in Shanghai, that would have been probably the craziest one of the bunch, and it's just, you can tell just how much it meant to him. And of course, I mean, a lot of it was kind of compounded by what happened to his brother just before, of course.
Tragedy.
I mean, you could tell that like at the end, that's just where he let it all out, like it was such a heartbreaking moment at the same time of Spirit's win, that like you can't help but feel terrible for him, exactly because of how close he's gotten so many times. And especially now where everybody counted them out, like everybody thought FaZe probably the one team of the big ones that probably has no chance. They are the ones at the bottom by far because they've beaten like one top 5 team in 3 months or 5 months.
Striker, I did a tweet before, right? And I was like, it was saying and I did the 6 names, right? Vitality, Na'Vi, MOUZ, Spirit,
G2 FaZe.
G2 FaZe. And I did that. And majority of the comments and the replies were people being like, lol, why are you including FaZe? Lol, why are you including Spirit, right? And I think that goes back to what you were saying before, Prof, about like how the thing with competition, and especially with ours, with how regular it is, you need to win and you need to remind people regularly, right? Like that's kind of how it works with it. Whereas realistically, if people are trying to peak for the major, then next year that strategy will be a bigger conversation point, and maybe something we need to do a better job of like pointing out the level of importance for certain teams at certain moments and discussing, what the peaks are and if they do hit those, because well, that's quite prevalent by what we saw here with the 2 teams we had in the final. But I want to stick with the emotional side of things that you were talking about, because seeing those emotions, even Rain looked the most distressed I think I've ever seen. Like Rain look after a loss as well. Those Brokey, after they had won that to get the 11th round, like you saw like how fucking pressed he was that he missed that orb shot. Like he's biting his hand, bro, and like Rain was getting fired up. So there was a lot going on with the emotions, and I think that the emotions is that being shown, even though it's hard. But I think a lot of people to like see that and be like, oh, why are they even showing this? But that's exactly the point. That's why we kind of love competition. It's because you get the heartbreak on one side and you get the elation on the other. I
thought that was such a special part of this major, because we also saw Nico cry the day before, of course, and that's also something we'd never seen before. To that, because I mean there have been several moments where that major just slipped away, or he got close but just not quite in the end. But for some reason this is the one that got to him, and that's just coming as a result of also the implications of this was my last match with G2, and how that affects all the emotions that go through you, like once you actually realize that this is it for you, this is it for you at the major. Not only didn't you win, as it looked like you might, like it looked like this might again be the time. Not only does that not happen, now you're leaving m0NESY behind potentially. You're going to another team. You don't even know how your chances are going to look like next year. Like all of this.
The Hunter angle as well, like not really spoken about. This major wasn't really the top news thing, but like they have joined forces with the hopes of like winning a major together. Yeah. That's like they
won the Red Bull doc. Yeah,
they won some great tournaments like Katowice, Cologne, and other stuff. But the major probably will never happen. Like it's like the m0NESY reuniting maybe even could, but I think the Hunter part is not really something that's very likely. So that's also like a part of it. And I know like we can disagree on what we think like Nico's future with Falcons will be, and like how many chances he will have to win majors. But this was a really good one. Like the way they were playing when they were playing, in the quarterfinal, even like all the players showing in different form. Like m0NESY, I guess we can talk about that at some point. Maybe not to his level of this year, but like Mob stepped out, Nico was playing amazing in that quarter and just through the tournament in general. Like it felt like this is a really good chance to end this on a high note, and obviously it just gets taken away in a very like frustrating way. And even
do you think that played into the missed performances from m0NESY and Nico at all, or do you think it was all TurboGirl's fault?
What?
But you don't. I was making a joke.
Who's this?
You missed the joke. TurboGirl.
Is this the m0NESY situation? Or
yeah,
what?
come on, man.
I don't know
Anyway,
the names,
you're not
bro.
keeping up with the
Bro, I don't know the
cheats,
name.
bro.
Like literally a month ago, I'm meeting some friends that are like into CS, but not into CS. And like the only thing they asked me about is like, oh, did m0NESY, like, what's the situation with m0NESY and his girlfriend? I'm like, bro, what are you? They don't even watch CS. How do you know this? And they're like, there's this Facebook page, Everyday Counter-Strike, and they post it. I'm like, why are you even on Facebook? You're fucking 25. Why are you on Facebook? What are these things?
No,
Bro, but he said he's not going to have any. He used the Navi Boomich quote. He said no brand risks, and then went fully into Counter-Strike.
No, but do you think that was a joke? I'm sorry, everybody. I didn't mean to derail. Do we think that though the fact that it was the extra pressure of this was the last time that they'd be playing with Nico in the G2 jersey, that it actually had an impact? Because it would be remiss to say it wouldn't, right? Like
I think it's
feel
both
like
ways,
that
though.
knowledge is going to play an impact.
I think it's both ways. You could also tell that Nico was hitting another level like throughout the major, and you could also say that maybe that's part of it as well. You know, this is his last dance, whatever. Like we repeat it all the time. Whenever something like this happened, I never got the impression that like this was a dead team walking at any point when we've known about this for months, as you do with like when Vitality were breaking up, you know, and it was like 2 months, and you could tell that they were just kind of like, yeah, riding out the year, you know, but they weren't.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, you know, with a lot of teams, you see that, but with G2, if anything, that was even more motivation for them to really end on a high, you know, and for whether it is Nico's and m0NESY's last time together, who knows, right? But that is like obviously a pairing that we might not see for another time at least. And so for them to ride it out in on a high note would have been great for them. And I'm sure that like all of them were mega motivated. Whether that actually hurt them, I would say probably not. It didn't seem like that to me, at least. Hard to say, like just the last series, you know, it's a bit difficult to make sense of like why everybody just disappeared in that fashion, because they also didn't start out that badly into that series, and it just didn't look like that was going to happen at any point, you know, all the way until the semifinal. I mean, even the quarterfinal, like Nico had to pull out some crazy shits to even get them over the line. You know, they might have even lost that one, you know, if it went, you know, one round goes another way. So it just never felt like that was impacting them in a negative way, at least.
But yeah, no, fair enough, because I had to change my take on it, because they were just approaching it like, okay, well, we're professionals at what we do. We all have acknowledged that this change is happening, but it doesn't change what's in front of us right now and what the goal is, right?
Yeah, I think
that was
we're
quite
also
clear with the.
Yeah, sorry. Go.
No, you're right. Go.
I just want to think. I think we're in a different time of Counter-Strike when this is going to happen more often, and people just like get on with it. Like it's not I'm leaving the team because I hate you and you know you stole my girlfriend or whatever. You know, it's just it's professional. It's contracts. It's money. It's like, you know, and just because you're leaving the team doesn't mean you want to waste 6 months sitting in this team and not winning. Like this team is capable of winning, so let's fucking win and then go our separate ways, you know?
Yeah,
so
I mean, the same could be said for FaZe, right? I mean, we're going to get into that conversation about who knows whether FaZe already knew that this lineup was going to be over by the end of this year, or now heading into the major, knowing that. If anything, for them, I feel like it would have even come as more motivation again. So it does seem like we're in a different time with these sort of conversations, at least for a lot of these teams. And especially, I mean, now that we have majors at the end of the year, it's like you can't just ride it out at the major, you know, like you do have to give your best realistically, like, especially if you're like, of course, if you're a top 15 team, whatever, and you just barely squeak to the major, and like just doing well there is fine. And like you're probably not looking at the winning regardless. But if you're a top 5 team who has a lineup that has shown capable of winning tournaments, like you're always going to go into the major as prepared as you possibly can individually as a team, regardless of whether this is the lineup that you're going to stick with moving forward.
Oh, for sure. And I think that this is a nice little segue into talking about Vitality, right? Because I'm not sure if everybody caught it, but I think you guys put it on the short news stuff.
Yeah.
But Apex, on an Instagram post that he had put up, essentially the little description, I guess that's what it's called. Really tough ending of the season. When you are not a real team, it's real tough to win the major. And that's what I feel for a couple of months. That's almost the contrast of what you're saying here, right? That's obviously, well, I would imagine that's to do with the Spinks situation. It's called a caption. Thank you very much, Dangerous Ducky.
Would have been amazing if Vitality didn't cancel interviews like even before the game ended, so they could have come and said something about that. Just gonna put it out there. Just gonna put it out there.
Well, that's pretty classic from Vitality management. Like they did the same shit to us at Pro League. Like they just.
The worst thing is I was like screenshotting this message and then I got banned on WeChat because apparently you get banned on WeChat for screenshotting messages sometimes. So I got double fucked. That's it.
Wow. Banned on WeChat. Well, I guess this is the next, because I don't know if we have more we want to say about G2. The exciting stuff to talk about with G2 is the potential roster changes, and like the m0NESY News is from Nell, at least his report on that. So we'll talk about that.
By the way.
Okay.
We have effectively the same story. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that, when we get to that section. But like the Vitality for their major run, when I was at breakfast one day and I was talking with Matt, for those people who don't know Matt, he's 1.6 player. He works I guess he's assistant coach. I think I don't want to call him an analyst. I'm pretty sure he's an assistant coach over there. He's been behind them when Zonic hasn't been able to be with them in the past. And it just kind of worked out most days. They were at breakfast. I was at breakfast. And we were chatting one day and he's like, yeah, like we've only played 4 days. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, well, we've been here for 28 days and we only played 4 days. And it's like, because they obviously won both of their best of ones and then the best of three, they had the path of least resistance. They had so much time there. And then they go into the playoffs. And that was their 5th day of Counter-Strike that they were playing, right? And that's such a long time to be in one place. Obviously, you would prefer to go in that way. You're getting to show less and everything, but you're also not playing and getting as many reps in, and practice over there is going to be a bit more limited and stuff. But the Vitality story coming to an end so quickly, it was kind of just felt a bit flat. I thought, I don't know, I don't know what to make of Vitality's, because the thing is, I saw someone the other day point out like the only teams that Vitality have beaten in major playoffs, or maybe it was ZywOo specifically, and then that kind of brings a lot of stuff into question. And they have
those were the 3 ones in Blast, right?
In Paris,
yeah. But I think that you look, they lose to FaZe 2-1 after winning the first map pretty dominantly.
Also, in a way, like that series really started out like, okay, this is done. This is it for FaZe. Like, there's no, like, that's exactly what we're expecting. FaZe are just going out with a whimper. Nothing's gonna happen, and then boom, like it all switches from one map to another, and then they just slam 2 maps in a row. Like, I don't know, I'm not even sure what really happened there. It just seemed like such a disappearance on those 2 maps.
Yeah, someone's just pointed out, well, the thing I'm talking about is all of the Vitality's playoff matches since they've been like in Counter-Strike, and like the highest ranked team that they had beaten in a playoff run was like in the teens, I'm pretty sure. Maybe someone in chat. I just remember, because when I was traveling home,
they only won, the only games they won at majors were in Paris and Copenhagen.
Okay, well, yeah.
So in Paris,
I was traveling
into the Breach, Apex, Gamer Legion, and then in Copenhagen it was
Cloud9 in Paris. There you go.
It was Cloud9.
There you go. That's the highest ranked team they've beaten in a playoff run.
Yeah, and before that, I mean, they only made 2 more playoffs before that, and that would have been Stockholm and Berlin, with like vastly different rosters, and they lost to Navi in Stockholm, which, I mean, at that time everybody would have lost to Navi and then Avangar in Berlin.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of like the collapse. I don't know, like, because obviously there's the magic around FaZe, right? But what do we make of the collapse from the Vitality side of things? Obviously, we knew that they were going to be changing. Like, Spinks is leaving. I hate that
post on Instagram, really, especially because of what we were just talking about. Like, everybody should like you should use that as fuel almost, like unless there's really something wrong inside
But they
the
don't
team,
get along, right? Isn't it they don't get along?
That's
Isn't
the
that
part
whole
of it.
thing?
Like I'm not so sure how much stock I would put into that, but there's clearly something happening there that's kind of throwing a wrench in things. But regardless, I mean, you should be able to put that behind you, especially knowing that, okay, regardless if you're going to get benched at the end of the year, we still have a major to play, right? And like that, we don't feel like a real team. I mean, I get it to some degree, but still, like you should be able to put that behind you for one tournament, and then just get on with it, because like to put it on like we didn't feel like a real team. It worked me the wrong way at the end.
I mean, especially without more context, it just feels like
exactly. I don't know. That's the thing. Like, I'm not sure I understand it as like I am obviously reading into it a lot, and I don't know if that's what he actually meant. But maybe do an interview and then we'll see what you actually mean.
No, it just seems like kind of like a cope, like an excuse without more context. Like if there's more to be heard, would be great to hear and to have a bit of more like understanding of like why it ended up being this way, because otherwise Striker said everything.
It's hard to talk about the like run in itself because it was so few games and they dominated everybody up until the FaZe game, and then all we have left is the remnants of, well, we know things are changing, and that's that. Like that is kind of where we get left with this Vitality conversation.
I mean, you also have to wonder if that was kind of part of it, because they didn't really get tested all the way to, I mean, effectively through the RMR all the way to the major
one
as
game
well.
went overtime, I think that was it.
The Fury game that they kind of turned around, I think that was one that they were also on course to losing, from what I remember. And like that's the only map that they ever get tested on, and they just go 3-0 and barely play any Counter-Strike. Same thing at the RMR, they just go 3-0 at the RMR, then they went back. Did they go back home, or did they?
No,
they
stayed.
They
stayed
stayed, right? Yeah, they stayed the whole time. So, and they played like Gamer Legion, Bad Boom into FaZe at the RMR, then Gamer Legion, Fury, MIBR into FaZe at the major. It feels like almost their seeding worked against them, because maybe if they played like one or two of the bigger teams on the way, that could have looked a little bit differently. But I don't know. I mean, that's just the kind of spitballing what might have been the issue, because I really don't know. It just felt like such a disappearance.
Yeah, considering the like, yeah. But okay,
I had to.
The other team,
I had to step in for the guy we can't mention now anymore, and defend ZywOo after this quarterfinal exit, just slightly. Just
okay.
I was
he was playing well.
I was kind of irked again. It's so annoying that I have to sound like a m0NESY hater all the time when I'm not, but it's like the public perception, I feel like, of like other players is just so wrong sometimes. It's just unfair that the whole story is like, oh, ZywOo can't win in playoffs. Like, he literally posted the same numbers as m0NESY in this game. It's just the difference is he doesn't have Nico and Malbs actually doing stuff in his team to like carry him through a pretty okay playoffs game, like to win against FaZe. Like there's the rest of Vitality was pretty much shitting the bed. Obviously, Flames had some moments and stuff like that, but the fact that they don't win any playoff games can't be solely on ZywOo. That's all I'm saying. It can't be just on him, and it's not like he had a bad game. Could he have played some rounds better? This is 100% true, but also what are these expectations? I don't know what the expectations are. I think it's just like the unfair way we're treating ZywOo sometimes in these games. And
I don't get into those vehement debates. I stay out of those. They're for other people. I just kind of watch what's happening and talk about that. That's not for me. I don't see any good to come out of those. If I am lagging a little bit, my apologies. I am on 5G, which is normally very good.
I think my internet also like did something.
I think you're okay. I never saw any problems.
No. Let's jump over to Mouse. There's rumors around them having roster changes too, but that's really not the crux of this conversation. Are they bedwetters?
I mean, kinda. No, you can't really say anything. It's hard to make an argument against it, realistically. Yeah. And I think we've been kind of trying to find a stable player in this and like be okay. Who is going to perform, who's not going to perform in a playoffs game. And I think we kind of come back full circle every time. I think this time even Jimpat didn't really deliver like this whole tournament. He was kind of like
shook, yeah.
average, I would say, at best. We had another like bad exertion playoff game, which again, he is in some roles that are like more volatile, but also in general should be one of their best performers, if not the best like rifling
Some of his
performer.
decision making was bad.
I mean,
So,
that Mirage game, the Mirage game as well, like the chopper duels, like some of these couple of those moments that might have swung it another way, you know, like it was pretty rough.
I put less credence in like the duel he lost to Chopper with the Mac 10 because Chopper actually was considering that. It feels like a fight that he needs to win because it confirms an important round. But like jumping in connector away from that duel and it became the 1v1 and he just makes it so he can get shot. Like whereas otherwise if he had like just crouched and looked at the ground from where he was, I think I have to look at the demo. I think he would have been fine. So yeah, it was definitely not a glamorous performance from MOUZ at all because it started so well. Map 1 was a masterclass on Nuke. They isolated Donk. They were using util that forced him to play in different positions. Then they abused the fact that they knew that he was going to play somewhere else and then just like would sneak past him. And it was beautiful. Like it was the best I think I've ever seen MOUZ play. And it was brilliant. They looked like the comms were flowing. The tactics were perfect. The game plan was there. They were able to isolate star players. They gave Donk his second worst performance of the year. And then they're on the cusp. And they just shit the bed.
The way they lose that Mirage, it's like all the things that as a coach you can't do anything about. I feel like it's one of those like you're in positions, you just need to do the thing that you've done so many times, kind of the most basic stuff, and they fuck it up and then just lose control of the game, and then it just starts going worse and worse. And you know there's an eco, and then there's that round like the T-spawn duel, and there's so many of these situations where they just win it 70% of the time, 80% of the time, and then they win the game, and that's it. Like they should win it 70-80% of the time, but they don't. And I don't even know what do you go back to in the review of this game, and what do you say about these situations? You don't need to teach anyone what they are supposed to do. Like they all know it. So I think it is just really they need some sort of a roster change that's going to give them a bit more consistency in these games.
I mean, we just had that conversation when we were deciding the awards for this because it was just like the millionth tournament for MOUZ where you can't really, none of them stood out. Like they all kind of shared credits in different points because some of them just disappear in some points and like somebody else takes over. You can't really rely on one or two players from MOUZ to consistently appear time and time again, and it just has to be all of them kind of throughout the tournaments to show up for them to even be able to win. And the only times they have won was effectively where one of them actually did step up to the level. Like we had that period from Xerxon where he had like 3-4 tournaments in a row where he was just like clearly their best player, you know, and it looked like that was going to be their step towards now we can start winning the arena games, you know. But then he is the one who's struggling in arena games, you know, sometimes. And that's just like, if you don't have anybody you can rely on during these games, you don't have to have a superstar, but at least you can have somebody who will always be there during these games, and then everybody else can use that for support. But when you see, you know, like two of them disappear and then it's just about Jimhat, or like Brawl was the guy who led them through that Nuke game, like he was the one carrying, and that's not usually the player that is doing that for them as well. And then two of them disappear for the third game as well, and then it's just about like even Shuhi had a lot of moments, you know, this tournament, and even with that,
some big clutches,
like even just generally like his performance was like on par with everybody else. Like they were all kind of very similar to each other during the tournament, and so like even if you have 5 players kind of turning up for a tournament, if you don't have one turning up consistently, it seems like it's a really big problem for MOUZ. And so like it feels like the only way out of it is for them to get like somebody who can get consistent MVP performances, you know, so that they can have that one big performer all the time and everybody else can be supporting cast, you know, and like they can take turns between which two of the other 3 can step up at different points, you know, because at the moment there's nobody you can rely on from over an entire tournament.
I want to kind of reach into something I suppose that you were mentioning earlier though, Prof. Like when we look at these teams, we throughout the course of the season, like they have one result that's good, and then we're like, oh, this team's so good, and then they have a bad result, and they're like, oh, they're so bad. So like they lost to the team that were the eventual winners of the tournament. So is it that we're putting it under more of a harsh critique, or is it that just the way that they were playing is more in line with the same issues that we've seen, right? Like how do we frame
I think they're
this,
just
and
yeah,
is it a fair framing?
they're just stuck on the same level. No, it's just the same problem over and over again. That's the thing. I don't think there's a
Progressing?
development. There is no
But
progression.
they were in two finals this year that were smaller arenas, right? They were in the Rio final against Navi, and they're in the Chengdu final against FaZe.
Yep.
Yeah,
So they did start to get arena wins, which was their biggest bane before.
and they got semis here. So you're thinking like they're winning some arena games, but still showing some of the problems that they had before. I mean, it is true. Like they made a great comeback against Mongols, for example, where the game started like everything went wrong. Essentially, that could have, like, all of these clutches that they lost, like 7-1, 7-2 or something start, and they made a comeback and kind of almost made it look easy. The comeback that they had. So there is some strength in that. That there are some props to be given for like making a bounce back in a pretty dire situation. But overall, I think the movement, the progression has been. If there's been no progression, there's been some progression, but it's been like very, very slow.
Slow, yeah. Well, if they do have a roster change, then it'll be a different conversation anyway, won't it? So.
Of course. I mean, it's not that they've had a bad year or anything like that. I mean, they're still probably going to turn out to be like a top 5-ish team of the year, right? They have a couple of wins, they have a couple of more finals and all that stuff. Like their year has been great considering everything. Like it's nothing to scoff at, but it's not a question to actually go one step further, right? And if they can get somebody,
do they have the capability to take the final step and lift the trophy? Because the first thing, right, is the major final itself, and then the next thing is getting past the hurdle of being under all that pressure and winning in that environment, right? So that's the real question that persists here. Let's jump into talking about. We've only got a couple of teams left from the playoffs. Let's talk about Heroic, because I definitely wasn't hating on them. I just didn't think that they had what was necessary to get to where they got to and then continue to perform. I'm big fan of Nerds. I've always liked what Nerds has brought to the table. But the big question mark for me was the X factor of Degster. And I don't think I'd really seen it on a consistent level since in coming back to the game, that he was able to find himself in impactful moments, and boy, was he impactful for them, especially on Mirage. That he was just winning a lot of clutches and playing them quite masterfully, really. So I think that they delivered beyond my expectations the most out of all of the teams, right? Like I think obviously FaZe making the final run, but for me, I'm always like, well, I've seen FaZe do this before, like I kind of, but whereas Heroic, from what I saw, I was really impressed with Kixon and the way that he handled himself. He had a lot of really good and big moments too. And if Degster can now be at that, because that was Degster's form before, right? Like being clutch and in your face and X Factor AWPA. Now, do I think sometimes he makes some like interesting, probably silly type decisions with his positioning and whatnot? Yeah, but if you're going to be clutching with AKs or AWPs, or you're going to be making that sort of impact, then yeah, you definitely need to be able to acknowledge that. So that's my takeaway with Heroic. I wanted to say that they performed above my expectations, and I think they look good. And Degster played very well.
I think it's especially crazy considering the run that they had, because they've effectively didn't have any easy teams on the way. I mean, they started out with
many hard names.
They started out with a win against Big, but then the run is FaZe, Mongol, Spirit, Navi, G2. That's literally like what four playoffs teams plus Navi, who they only just beat this, which is number one team, or what they just beat to make to the playoffs, right? So it is an incredibly tough run, and they still should have made it to the semis. Realistically, like it is all Malbs that just gets G2 out of a hole in that Mirage, like in 4 different situations. Like any of those go the other way and Heroic win that game and go on to the semi. And who knows, I mean, if they go up against FaZe, if they wouldn't be able to match up against them a little bit better when G2 didn't really show up in that series, from their individual perspective. So like it was an impressive run. Is it like, for me, I'm just kind of
do you think they can replicate it? Is that the question?
Yeah, if you can replicate it, because they've looked better in the last couple of months. I mean, they also had Rio, where they played, where they got to the semis, right? And it seemed like they were on an upwards trajectory, but it still looks like they are reliant a lot on these individual moments. And I mean, Degster is still pretty up and down in that. and I'm not sure if that's going to be enough for them to do it again. But still, I mean, considering that, like they might well be somewhere in the conversation for like best of the rest. Like we had the big 6 teams of the year, and they're going to be somewhere just outside of that conversation. Which, I mean, obviously it's not what Heroic will be happy with. I'm sure they would rather be in like that top 5 conversation and be somewhere in like title contention. But considering the lineup they had, and considering that they maybe got the short end of the stick at the beginning of the year a bit more, it seems like it was not such a bad finish to the year, at least.
Yeah. No, I agree. Prof, you got anything you want to say about Heroic, or you want to keep flowing?
Yeah, we can flow on. I think you guys
All right.
kind of did a good job.
2 more to talk about from the playoff bracket: Mongols or Liquid. For Liquid, they had a pretty easy run if you look at the teams that they beat to get to the playoff bracket. And then they were in good positions in certain moments at Spirit, but just made bad choices, or donk happened. But I wouldn't say it was like donk is the reason that they lost that series. I think for me, and this is a question that I have for you guys, because this is the feeling I have. Do you guys Liquid is missing something? Like, I know it's only their first 6 months and they made a major playoff and they didn't last time, but it feels like there's something that they miss. I don't know what it is. It's just something's missing.
I don't like how they went from this super combative team, and they had such a big identity at the beginning of this roster, where you could see them fight for everything. Like Ultimate was so in your face, and of course, like eventually he kind of realized that that's not what you can do 24/7, and people will be prepared for it. And like you're just giving away your cards too early into the game a lot of the time for the other team not to be able to counter that at some point. But generally, that identity was always, we're going to fight for all the space. Like every time that there's going to be a contest, we're going to fight for it. And instead, we've gotten to, and they were another one of those teams like a G2, like a FaZe, that were going for a lot of retakes, like a lot of those kind of probably 40-60, but like those that most teams that are playing more of them for the numbers will probably not go for, because it just seems like it's likely not going your way. But they were going for those retakes, like the other international teams that are kind of more combative. And then suddenly the last couple of months, it felt like they've gone a lot more passive. They've gone for way more saves. I mean, I really hated that in the Spirit game, how many saves I saw them go on Dust 2, where they were,
I have an anecdote there.
They were falling further and further behind. And there were moments where, of course, it's a 3v3. It's like you kind of have to, like, of course, you kind of have to take your losses sometimes, but you are falling so far behind and you're giving yourself so few chances to actually win these rounds that, like, you just have to start going for these, because it's like you cannot just keep saving. Like, you cannot just keep hoping for the next round to go better for you at the start, for you to get the opening or whatever. Like, you really have to go out and reach for it and take it. And they were just not doing that the entire Dust 2 game. The economic decisions that they made at the beginning of the second half, where they lost the force buy battle and they went into an eco into a half buy instead of a force into an eco or whatever. Like, it felt like they were giving away control of the game on many points of Dust 2. And it just, like, I have a hard time putting it on anybody other than Twists. I don't know what's your anecdote, if you have something else to say to that, but
the
I
anecdote
really had
is
a
on
hard
the
time.
Spirit side. It's not so much on the Liquid side. So on that Dust 2 game where they saved the AWP and then Hallie took a timeout, they bought an AK into donk. They had a pair of dual Berettas on one, and then the other 2 had Glock. So essentially it was saved up and upgraded AK, and that was it. And then Shiro gets boosted back Cat, and you're Liquid, and you know that they have saved an AWP. You don't know what else they're going to invest, but you know 100% they saved it all. And they do the classic thing where they're trying to activate ultimate, so they clear the smoke in middle, and then Shiro's on this boost and orbs him. And I was like, wow, Hallie, he must have called that in the timeout. Like, genius move from Hallie, like fucking amazing. And then at breakfast, I saw the Spirit guys, and Chopper was going up to grab some dessert, and I was like, fuck it, I'm going to go and pretend like I'm going to get some dessert here because I want to ask Chopper this question. So I'm like, Chopper, what's good here? And he's like, I don't know, this one looks good. And I'm like, oh, the other day when you were playing against Liquid and Hallie called the timeout and you had the saved up. And they go, did Hallie call that or did you? And he goes, nah, Shiro did. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, thanks. Because, we never really know what gets said in those moments. But it's just like, I guess either that Shiro must be watching the demos, right? Must have been told from the analysts, from the crew, like, this is something they like to go for. So one saved up, a boost, a kill, onto ultimate. Twist goes long, doesn't fight for A control because he doesn't want to fight against the AWPer, understandable. But Nobody moves on B.
They didn't even know. That's the thing. Like they didn't even know that they didn't have guns. Like they only knew about the op. They literally only knew about the op, and they thought they bought up around it because there was also like that AK or something, right? Like they literally just had
an AK,
and one AK with an armor, and everybody else just had pistols with no armor. And Liquid never even knew because they just lost A control and like saved 4v5, and that was the end of the round. And there was just so many moments like that I was just pulling my hair out over like what's happened, how they massacred my boy, you know, like it was just such a fun team at the beginning, and then it's just kind of gone sideways for like stylistically for them. I don't know, like it just felt like that series specifically. I mean, the fact that they made it to the playoffs is still good, and it's still a better result for them that they were trending towards before the major. So like you can't really fault them for it, but I just really disliked the way that they played that game.
Yeah, I mean, I actually watched their like vlog thing last night. It came out or something.
Really sick. Yeah.
It was a very interesting little bit. I think for the FlyQuest game when they lost the first map, where Mither came out and fucking shat on everyone. Like I did not expect this from Mither, to be honest. Like but he just doesn't look like that type of a guy. But he was going hard, and it was like, you know, if you want to play like shit, then fine. But like, this is not like the team that I want to coach, and maybe not this is not necessarily the quote, but essentially being like, this is super disappointing. I'm gonna give you a whooping here, and if you want to be mad at me, fine. But like, this is not the team. This is not how we play CS. And that was very interesting. I think kind of ties into playing a bit more, I would say, not to lose, almost Counter-Strike, kind of like too much respect maybe for some of the opponents. Because like this is that round that's not how you win Counter-Strike games for sure. Like assuming they are just doing everything perfectly, right? You're never going to win like that.
Dude, the thing that was wild to me was Twist was vomiting like before games, and there's like a bit in that where JKS was saying like, oh yeah, you can see you trying to get everybody fired up and then holding in and trying not to vomit at the same time. That's how sick he was. I remember talking to him one morning, and he actually I think he said he went to the hospital at one point when he was there in China. So he was like proper sick. I don't know. I don't think he got to the end of it as what the diagnosis was or whatever, but he was having a hard time. He wasn't having a good time at all. So that's not so good. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like something's missing for Liquid. A lot of people want Yakinda's head on a plate. But I'm not. We'll talk about roster change stuff soon. Okay, last one, boys, of the playoff teams, Mongols, the team that everybody thought was going to win the major. Obviously, a historic feat for them to make it to the playoffs, and things started, I think, okay for them in map. They were doing all right, right, against Mouse.
Both maps. They were 9-3 up on both maps,
and then they dropped the series. But Senzu had a terrible performance. So right there is one of those things. I will just return everybody to looking at nerves, right? Because it's a different environment. It's a different situation. This is a major playoff game. You're on a big stage. Your first time there. Players can say, oh, we don't get affected. And maybe that's true for some of them, but really it's not like the case because the way, like pressure, right? So if you're feeling pressure, what is it? Well, it's like it could be nerves, it could be stress, but those things are creating like a tension, and that's either like a physical tension or a mental tension. So you're not doing things the way that you would traditionally do them, right? And if things don't feel right, Counter-Strike, as much as it sounds like real, like a cliche type of thing to say, a lot of like is how you're feeling in the game. Like, you're still going through your procedures of like what my utility response should be, or what do I have to open up with nades? But the time you go for a swing, or if you're one of the more proactive players in the team, when you're looking for a fight, a bit of that does come down to the way that you feel in that moment. And if you're like under the pump and the game's not coming to you, not flowing, then you can have those kind of drop-off games. So it was unfortunate because there was a lot of hype because of their run up until that point and the way that they were winning games and that they look so confident in their aim. But I still think it's a nice step. It's like I'm not sitting here going, well, fuck, Mongols suck now. It's like, okay, another step, right? Like they have consistently taken big steps over the last year. So for me, as much as I feel they could have gone deeper, I'm still pretty impressed. I mean,
first major playoff, first like big event playoffs, if I'm pretty sure. Like they didn't make any Colognes, Katowice or anything like this, right? They didn't play blast events. So they they've done a pretty great job this year. Like, obviously, even like 2 years back, there's a bit of hype around them. I think even 2022 major
When they
cycle.
were IHC, right?
Yeah, they're like, oh, these guys are playing some decent Counter-Strike. There was something here. So the progression has been steady. Roster changes have also happened. Like, they haven't really just been sticking to the same players, which is, I guess, a testament to Mongolian Counter-Strike, that they have more players to choose from and to like consistently upgrade and even downgrade sometimes, with Hasteka, for example, and then coming back and being like, maybe this doesn't make sense, continuing that route. So I think it's like a really, really good performance for them, really good year overall. Losing to Mouse, losing in the playoffs, I think it's just definitely lack of that experience on like a player like Senzu, which is potentially their best player this year. I guess you can argue back and forth between some of them, but he's definitely up there. So yeah, good result. I know that it was a fun little nitpicky observation that people said it was not historic because we actually had Asian teams in the playoffs before. Do you know this, Chad?
Are we talking about Renegades, or are we going all the way back to like 1.6?
No, even in CSGO and CS2, like you can make an argument that, Renegades, if you're going like from the region, from Valve region, Renegades made like semifinal. So that was better. And then if you're just looking like continentally, Kazakhstan is in Asia. So we had major winners from Kazakhstan already. So in theory, they didn't actually, like, if you want to be nitpicky, they didn't accomplish anything historical, which is kind of fun, actually.
All right, well, fuck them.
It's very fun to be like annoying. I think this is Jeff. Was this Jeff or Eminem or Razarza from coverage? One of them. It was very funny in that Discord.
Regardless of what it was a shit take.
I mean, it is. What is a shit take? It's just facts, actually.
Right.
It's just facts.
Right.
I mean, are they an Asian team? Yes. They also spend a lot of time in Europe, so it's not like they're like playing in China exclusively. Yeah. So, but it is what it is.
Fair enough.
But congrats.
I mean, it's kind of funny how it was like almost a delayed reaction to the hype that was around them for Copenhagen already. I don't know if you remember, but talking to a lot of the teams around Copenhagen, it was like, bro, Mongols destroyed us in practice. Like everybody was like hype on Mongols heading into Copenhagen, and there it was kind of they just kind of went out with a whimper in the second stage. But like this is like where it seems like they're picking up a lot of steam, and really, I mean, they will get all the opportunities for next year, all of them, to be able to confirm this, to be able to develop from this, to be able to learn from this, and potentially have like a title contender from Asia even for the big events next year. So it's really exciting stuff. I really like it. I mean, as much as I was pulling my hair out over Senzu, because it's just like, how could you be so good that it just disappears so much? Especially in like the moment where you literally are the one making a difference. Like, you're not there, everybody else is actually putting up a fight, and you're letting your team down. So I'm hoping that he learns from this. I hope we don't get another playoff choker. They're just never gonna fulfill that potential, but it seems like they're heading in the right direction.
It's a good sign for the future, right? If they keep heading
I mean, they're crazy young, right? I mean, I had to kind of reverse
the youngest team, right?
They were the youngest ever playoffs team in the major playoffs. Yeah.
And
at like 20.25 or so. Yeah.
You look at a kid like Mazinho, like that definitely sticks out. But 9-10 looks really good. I think 9-10 is for the, like, you look at the few hours these guys have played, and it's like, holy shit! Like
they are rookies.
Hey. Okay, let's. I want to do some honorable mentions. So if you guys have any that you want to add to this, this honorable mentions can be good or bad. I know that normally an honorable mention is from a good perspective, but let's go from the bad perspective.
Dishonorable mention.
Yeah, dishonorable mention. Na'Vi has to be number one on that list, right? Obviously, they made it to the 2-2 game and they lost. But for me, it was the fact that mentally it didn't look like they were in Shanghai until like the final few games that they played. They just they didn't look like the same team that we had seen in the second half of the year, which was one that felt like they had a resilience to them and the players knew how to activate themselves and stuff. They just looked like, I don't know. I can't even possibly explain why they looked the way that they looked, but it was not it, as the kids would say. They get a dishonorable mention from me.
The heroic game, like when they were starting to make that comeback, you almost saw you saw glimpses of that Navi when they would like
Yeah.
activate in these like 3v5s and stuff, and like get this one kill, get this guy rotating out of position, and like put these rounds together that only they can do. I feel like in CS, but the base level was so bad. Like the JL this major completely tanked.
Not major MVP level of performance. Let's say that
No.
much, huh?
Yeah, so and then everything around it as well. Like no one really stepped up to fill that void, and just as a team, they looked very disconnected.
Yeah, it's a shame that that's the caliber of Counter-Strike they brought. An honorable mention, 3D Max. I think they played fun. I think they play like a fun style of Counter-Strike, because a lot of it is from Spawn, at least their openings. Like I remember like one round on Ancient that was being observed, just the sheer amount of flashes that they had. Like I think they did like 8 flashes over mid to make sure that they got mid control. And it's like, you guys are just, you just, that's all you want this round. All right, fair enough. But I thought 3D Max were fun. And Jocko's aim is fucking, like he's got legit aim. Like Jocko is wild with it, with the AK. Like it's really nice to see the way that he can hold himself against the best aimers in the world. So shout out to Jocko one time. And Game Legion was another honorable mention. That's mainly for the major run overall, considering none of these names, other than the coach, right? We know Volt, but otherwise, a lot of them people have seen before, but didn't really have too high expectations. Yeah, and what I wanted to do, gentlemen, I don't know if you guys had any honorable or dishonorable mentions that you wanted to add in here, but what I wanted to do, and I guess we can do this in our top 3 thing, I wanted to do a top 3 hottest prospects going into the break. And now they can be already established players from teams, but it's like who was like so impressive at the major that feels like they might get an upgrade to somewhere, or they might get, poached or something along those lines. So I don't know if you guys, I can give you my 3,
Go
and then
ahead,
you guys
I have to
can see
think.
if you have
I
anything
have to
to add,
think.
because I don't want to. So for me, and this is in no particular order, Insani, Flamus, and Ash, the coach of Gamer Legion. But if I was going players only, I would put Nertz, right? Because like I think with all these roster shuffles we might be seeing, Nertz would be one that I think some of these teams could really use his services.
You think he would be available so soon after signing?
I don't know. I guess it
It's like a
depends
year
like
into his
on
contract.
how much money people want to spend and what type of
Yeah.
player they're looking for. Like I wasn't thinking about it necessarily from the most realistic standpoint.
Yeah, it's
but
like who was on the
'cause
radar?
Insani in Brazil as well. Like Insani in Brazil, is he going to be able to? Because realistically, the best Brazilian roster, you can make 2 versions. You could just put Insani in for Cello, and then Fury are like pretty complete. Or you have Case Rado Skulls, Insani, Big Zero, NQZ. I think that would be a fucking sick roster. But yeah, Insani was definitely he had some huge games. I think Flamus is really exciting prospect as well. So those were kind of mine. Did you guys have anybody that would be interesting?
I mean, Flamus for sure is on the radar. He's just enjoyable to watch. He's also like very up and down. I feel like he can make the worst decisions sometimes and like throw rounds, but also he has the upsides that are worth it sometimes, especially for a team that's maybe, just middling and needs some X factor, I would say. The Insani, like as good as he was, he also had some like he went up and then like had the last games that they played, he was
disappeared
kind
a
of
bit,
dog.
yeah.
But I definitely think he like that's the only change on Furia that could happen. Like other than that, like they played a pretty decent major overall, and like their performance now versus like the last 2 years almost, I feel like this is the best they've been in a long time. So I'm not even like that crazy about changing anything. I think they would almost make like an honorable mention for like turning around to like a somewhat decent team. I think our good boy Elige is being like headlined a bit. I think he's definitely someone people should be looking at as a
prospect.
As not an upcoming prospect, but someone that's going to be on the market potentially. Is on the market, did tweet about having an agent. Jason Lake came out and said that they're not going to like lock him up if like a top 3 team comes, like a team that could be top 3 comes asking, that they would be happy almost to sell him for a reasonable price. So I think I don't see why people wouldn't look into that. And I guess this is his kind of shout out, I guess, moving to Europe and like playing in a European team if you want to do everything to win, which I think he's capable of, like skill wise, then that's the only thing that's probably missing. And there's definitely teams that could use a player of his caliber.
Yeah. I was just considering kind of like where would you put him, even, you know, like if it was one of the big six, let's say, like who would it be? Like, would it really just be FaZe or MOUZ? Like, because everybody else kind of has that kind of a player, and I don't think they would change from that. But then maybe
Couldn't
you
he
could
go
make
to
a couple
G2?
of. I mean, that depends on where. I was gonna slot around with some mobs and all those and the roles after that, right? I know that they could
MOUZ will
work
get
together.
more in Nico's spots, but you could still use Elige like within that team, I would imagine, and then you could backseat Hunter even more and put him in more anchor spots.
I guess
I don't know.
could be.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a possibility. It's not. I think that's not out of the question. I think like what we spoke about MOUZ, that would be like a pretty good fit. I think he is that kind of a player that even when things are not going well, he's gonna perform most of the time.
And he knows how to win, right?
Yeah.
So
I think that would be like
an struggle with.
That would be like an interesting, really like combination of players for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's hone in on this conversation just quickly because it's everywhere at the moment. It's bloody rampant off the back of Donk getting the MVP. And I know, Striker, you are one of the decision makers over HLTV of how this kind of all gets calculated. So I don't want to put you too under the spotlight here, but maybe if there's any nuggets that you could offer here, because we are going to be looking at the awards.
I'm so fucking hungry.
Oh,
you just said nuggets. I'm like, damn. No, we can keep going, but it's just like as you said it, I just felt it in my stomach.
I forgot to start the show with because we just got talking into the major straight away. I wanted to mention that the HLTV Community Awards were open.
Yes.
And that's something that you can talk on, Prof, because that's your baby. So do you want to talk about it just quickly before we? Yeah,
we can do it at the closing of the show. Let's. We also need to do the what are the odds for MOUZ at some point. Just remind me of that.
Okay, so award show in like 24 days from now, or whatever it is. There's big talk right now, like of who are the top 3 teams of the year, who are the top 3 players. Obviously, the orders up there. You'd have to say like obviously Na'Vi and then Spirit, right, because of the major. But then like if you were going to throw a third team in there. Is G2 like the third team of the year? Is that like in no particular order?
Like if I speak, I'm in big trouble.
There you go. Right?
I think G2 had a pretty good year overall. Like I think it's easy to like shit on them, but they won a few tournaments, made playoffs pretty much every tournament. You know,
like even if you look at the number of titles, right? Like nobody other than those 3 that you just mentioned have more than 1 title. So
yeah,
I mean, at least big ones. MOUZ have 2, right? One is Dacha, one is EPL. But everybody else, like those 3, G2, Spirit, Na'Vi, are the only ones who have more than 1 title from the big events, right? And then like how that phases out in like 2nd to 4th or 4th to 6th, all that stuff. Like that's where it gets very muddy, and like what's the what's going to be the order like.
Sure. Well, all right. Well, we don't have to waste too much time talking about this because it's still the same names that everybody knows and expects, and we'll have to wait see what comes out in the wash in 24 days time from now. Let's get into the juicy stuff, shall we? Let's fucking get straight into the tournament break. So the year's over as far as competitive Counter-Strike is concerned, but just getting started in terms of roster changes and what we can expect. Now, a few things. Blast put out a tweet after the major about the dates for Austin, which essentially confirms what I think a lot of us already knew, which was that the major is going to be extended to 32 teams and that you need an extra 4 days of Swiss, so the event will be longer. So for next season, we know that we're going into this new where partner leagues are dead, right? Officially, it's over now. That's all done. That's all dusted. It's all over. And now we're seeing all these different models that the main TOs are running with. PGL put out some stuff recently. ESL put out just the other day with this like club incentive stuff. We've seen what Blast have done. And then there's a whole bunch of other TOs getting involved. So next year's going to have a whole different flavor to it and probably a lot more to talk about from week to week and then the importance of matches and everything along those lines. But let's go with the exciting stuff because that stuff we probably lose a lot of people on, but the roster changes is one. So we're around the players all the time, gentlemen. You may be hearing things, you're talking to people. We just saw this Monacy. You said you guys had a report as well, but we saw from the CEO saying he wasn't for sale. Taz in a post-game interview saying that they're only one change that they're aware of. But it doesn't mean there can't be more for G2, depending on, I suppose, what happens with the market and who becomes available and what other trades and changes are looking at there. Do we know, is there anything else, Striker or Prof? Is there anything that you guys have any inklings on that you can share with the class?
I think it's very interesting how this whole Monacy conversation effectively affects everything else. Because for a time, for the, let's say, last month, it seemed as if Monacy leaving would just create this massive cascade and like everything would fall after that, because there was this whole like, who goes to Falcons if Monacy commits, because they were like, hey, he would have attracted more talent that might have made a change, from like a Mouse, from like a FaZe or whatever it would be, maybe there would have been like a bigger shake-up, among the top teams because somebody would follow Monacy. But now that it seems like he's going to be staying, a lot of those moves are not actually happening, and it seems almost as if we're heading into kind of a boring offseason outside of a couple of moves. It still could change, of course, because as we were saying, like during the major, only very few things were actually committed, and I mean the only big one that got committed was NiKo before the major, and everything else was a lot of talks, a lot of kind of exploration of where you could go, what could be your options depending on if the major doesn't go well, all these things. Then maybe Vitality actually would have been another one who seems like it was already committed before as well, that things would be leaving. So it seems like another one that's also set for changes. But other than that, I'm not actually sure that anybody else will unless, let's say Robs gets an offer from Vitality because there's a Spink spot on offer, like that could create another cascade. FaZe have to find a replacement, and then whoever G2 gets for NiKo, like whatever spot that creates a gap, or whichever team that creates a gap in, that's where they will need to make the replacement. So there are still a few things that I feel like can change, but it almost seems like a lot of the big teams will just get away with like one change or even zero changes for a lot of them. I mean, I don't think anybody expects Spirits to change at this point. I don't think that anybody expects Navi to change at this point, but it almost seems like MOUZ will also stay as they are at the moment, even though we were all kind of thinking they're going to be the ones who's going to get some players picked apart, So
Jimmy to Falcons isn't likely, huh?
It seems as if that was like tied directly to Monacy, and if Monacy was going, Jimmy would have gone as well, and that seems like that's backtracked now. So it really looks like kind of Monacy staying or having his organization say he's still not for sale, or they're still not going to let him go until his contract's out. Whatever the situation exactly is, like whether they're actually keeping him or he decided to wait it out for another half a year, until he sees after the like midway through next year, where a lot of the changes will be. Like I wouldn't put it past him to realize that Falcons are not actually going to play anything for the first half of the year unless they qualify for a lot of things, because their entire core is changing, right? So it seems like there's not going to be as much movement as we originally anticipated in this offseason, but that doesn't mean there will still not be any. Like, I mean, as I was talking about the maybe 3-4 key teams that could still kind of cascade a couple more things.
Because there was like conversation I heard from multiple different sides. Like I heard one that Rain and Carrigan, that would be it for them at FaZe, and then I heard on the other side that maybe like Rops goes, but like I feel like
I mean Rops will have a Vitality offer there. I'm surely Rops will have a Vitality offer, especially if what we heard about Jimmy declining Vitality, if that's true.
But would Jimmy go to FaZe? Imagine that.
I mean, that's also a possibility, right? But if he declined Vitality, would go to FaZe, that doesn't seem likely to me. It seems more that he would stay, if anything else. But I mean, there's still some movement. There's still some movement possible. But yeah, I mean, I could imagine like 2 spots for Robs, maybe even 3. Like Robs could go to G2, especially if it's if his contract is running out. I don't think we actually know when his contract is running out, but from what I heard behind the scenes, it seems like it could be at least close. So it wouldn't be a crazy expensive transfer. It also makes sense. I mean, he joined beginning of 2022, so if he got a 3-year contract, that would put it at the end of 2024. So it seems like that's the one that maybe will cause some chaos in the offseason.
Okay.
I mean, also Falcons just need more players.
Yeah,
like
that I think is the biggest problem, honestly. Like I don't know
they
who
need
they can
bodies in the chairs, so it's impossible for them to like I mean, impossible. It's possible that they bring back Snappy and fucking Sampaius or something. Which honestly, I don't think Sampaius is the worst option to have as an opper. But
you don't want to be in that situation again where you're like,
yes,
in half of a year we're going to get Monacy anyway, and you're like, okay, so we're going to be dead for half of a year again. Like for another half of a year, we're just going to be a dead team.
Even for G2, I don't understand why they would like what they would gain from like another 6 months period of like, we have just our biggest player is going to leave. You know, that's
but I mean, you would still want to squeeze out as much as you can from Monacy, surely, rather than letting him go, even if it's for a big buyout. You know, like
obviously, like at the same time, it's like. It's a complete disaster if you lose both Nico and Monacy at the same time, like both performance-wise, brand-wise, and just like having to build around like what are you going to do at the tournaments, especially when it's all based on how you perform. You might fall out of the loop, not qualify for a major. You know, there's a lot of things around it, but at the same time, it's like you're going through in never-ending transition instead of like building something new, right? And like maybe you do sell off your best 2 players, but you do get, you know, Rops and Elige and whatever. I don't know, some players where you start like fresh with actually a pretty promising core of players, and especially because you will obviously get paid for selling these. So I think it's a weird one. I don't know. I definitely like the Spinks thing is. I don't see how that's not happening, especially with what Apex put out. Like that has to be.
But where does Spinks go?
I mean, that could also be G2 potentially, right? I mean, that spot seems, I guess it's maybe too close to Hunter. It depends on how much he's willing to shift around still, because it's like we kind of expect mobs to slot into his roles, right? But there's still space for somebody more anchory. So it's just curious about where people would fit. I mean, Spinks isn't an anchor technically, really, so it would be difficult to slot in.
Yeah,
but I mean, FaZe, like if Robs goes the other way, then FaZe is one obvious place, right?
True.
So that would be one.
Yeah, I guess right. Everything being predicated on Monacy going, it makes a lot of sense because then a lot of teams could take 2 players and try and mix and match and see what would be possible, and people might be willing to do more trades that aren't going to cost us crazy buyouts. Whereas right now, to make those type of moves, maybe that's the thing. All it's going to take is one thing to happen, and maybe it does cause that massive cascade that we're not ready for. Like, so we all know that this only affects the Russian scene, right? But JM getting benched on VP, the rumor is Zorti going there, right? Like, I thought VP would try and vie for Monacy, but I guess if they're not selling,
he would never go, surely anyway. Like he would, like if he would go somewhere, it would be.
He said to me before he'd like to play on a Russian team.
Yeah. But it wouldn't be VP. Like that Russian team wouldn't be VP. It would be like Spirit, if they were crazy enough to go for like a Donk Monacy combination, So I feel like Monacy, as much as he would like to do that, I'm sure he's not stupid and he's not going to go to a team that's clearly just on the way down and he would have to save rather than, joining a team that can actually build for the future, So it seems at the moment, I feel like the biggest problem is oppers and who you can even get, because who's free or who's like loose in teams that you can actually get if you're Falcons,
and
for example,
and who's really good. There is not a lot of actually really good oppers.
Come up, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at even people like Device that have been like super consistent, like it's not like he is really, breaking people's brains now with his plays or anything. Yeah. You look at someone like Brokey, he is Brokey. I don't know even what to say more. I think that encapsulates everything about him. Like there's no like really
Jambo, man.
Good like safe pick that you can be like, this is a really good opper. And I think that's also like a CS2 thing among other factors, not just like talent available, but there is no obvious choice for some of these teams to where to go, essentially.
I mean,
even
that's also why
Zorti, like whatever.
That's also why if you're G2, like if Monacy leaves, you're kind of fucked, like who do you get?
Yeah.
That's remotely going to replace the sort of firepower that you need after Nico and Monacy leave, So like from that perspective, I can't, if they can keep Monacy inside, like I cannot blame them for that, because they would be so screwed if he leaves, So maybe in another year there will be somebody on the come up, before Monesi goes somewhere else or goes to join Nico and Falcons, whatever it is. They buy some time now, still have let's say top 3 player in the world, one of the big superstars, right? And they can still win tournaments with him, and that's probably worth more than even if they can get 2 million for the buyout today. For if he goes to Falcons, like he's worth more than that to them than sending him away. So it just at the moment it feels as if everybody's a bit hamstrung by that.
Okay.
Because there's just nothing you can do. There's nobody you can get that's actually going to improve your roster, or at least put it up on a similar level.
Fair enough. So it's boring. So there's nothing to talk about, really.
I do think like Sun Pius must find a place.
Yeah.
I think he's like too good to just be on the bench with
but
everything we spoke about
from Falcons, wouldn't it?
I mean, if they want him out, probably not.
I don't see why it would be. Also, we didn't even talk about Simple, for example. That's a whole discussion we didn't touch on much, but I don't see what benefit Falcons have from keeping him if they, if they don't plan on using him, right? Just paying his like salary or whatever on the bench is kind of pointless. So I think that is a player that needs to make a move somewhere. Where that would be and who would need him the most, I'm not really sure, but he's
Movistar Riders.
Movistar Riders.
They need him the most. Okay, so this roster talk is like, how long's a piece of string type stuff, because I thought that there'd be some fun leaks, but there's not really. It's kind of the opposite.
I mean, there's still a lot of things up in the air, right? I mean, the Vitality slot for Spinks, if that does come through, but it seems like it will, then, if Robs decides...
You mean Vitality slot for... Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, for like whoever they replace Spinks with, right? And then, I mean, again, Robs seems like such an obvious move there that, like, if that happens, then Kerrigan phase opens up, right? And who goes to phase to replace Robs, and do they want to make more changes? Can they make more changes? I mean, Brokey, I think a lot of people are looking at now because of how kind of weirdly on and off he's been this whole year. Probably a lot of people are looking at him for potential change, but again, what offer is there that you can get that's definitely going to be better than Brokey? Like probably ceiling wise, you can't get one. Like even if there is one somewhere, he's
what
probably
about
locked.
Simple?
Well, I don't know. It seems like nobody's interested.
This is yeah. I mean, the thing with I've even heard like Navi got inquiries for like multiple players during this period, and that could probably be maybe Falcon side looking at some of the players like a JL or whatever, Alexi. Why not, right? But obviously they're not looking to change, but doesn't mean that if the right offer comes in from, like, let's say, for example, they want JL, they pay a lot, then Navi gets like a Gympat, get like a LXCB Gympat combo going on. I feel like something like this would be completely, it would be like beneficial almost for everyone. And it could happen, but I think we definitely need a bit more time. And from what I'm hearing, like even some of the announcements for stuff that is obvious is not going to happen until like early next year. So it's going to be maybe a slow burn for this transfer period a bit.
Fair enough. Yeah, well, that's just the way it is. Do we want to bother talking now? Like PGL obviously put out some updates regarding their tournaments. ESL put out this whole club stuff.
What are the odds? Because we were talking about the transfer announcement before we finished.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We have
all
that.
Right. This is, in case you're just joining us, first time viewer on the show, welcome. This is What Are the Odds? It's a sponsor segment we do, brought to you by 1xBet. This is where you, the people at home, get to have a say on, well, what are the odds? So there'll be a question, and you guys get to answer said question, and we're going to do it too. So we essentially are going to be the ones who set the odds, the three of us. We're going to put percentages on the question. All right, what is the question this week, Zvonimir?
What are the odds Mouse lose more than one player in the shuffle period?
Well, now it's striking said it's not happening anymore.
We put such a damper on this question now.
To be yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, even before this, I didn't expect them to change more than one player. So for me, it's kind of low. For Striker, it's going to be kind of low.
Yeah, I think kind of depends if something happens that we don't anticipate now, or like one of those things that Prop was talking about. For example, Falcons come in with a big enough offer for somebody in Navi that then they will get somebody from Mouse, to replace him, and that will maybe Shuhei then will decide to go to Falcons as well, because that actually looks like a good team. And then, whatever it is, there is a world where it can still happen as a result of other moves happening. So it's not out of this world, but it's definitely on the lower side for me at the moment.
I'm throwing
yeah.
a 10%. I'm throwing a 10%, guys.
10%. Okay.
Well,
I think I feel that things aren't done yet, right? And right now we are on Wednesday, so we're only 3 days after the majors ended. People traveled from the playoffs on Monday, most likely. Conversations are going to be happening now, but then there'll be a Christmas hiatus. I think once we get to the 21st or 22nd, probably 21st, there'll probably be a 4 or 5 day break where everybody just kind of hands off the trigger and it's a bit chill. And then if anything's going to happen, probably in the new year. So I don't want to completely rule it out because I don't think the things are completed yet. So I would say with how it currently stands, I'm going to go with 35%.
Okay.
Still seems pretty
Really
low.
high.
Is it high? Is 35%
high for what we just talked about. More high for what we just
I know,
talked
but
about.
I'm the thing is with how quick everything could happen if some signing is made. It could be possible.
So here's what I will say. Despite of all of what I just said, it takes one thing to change, or maybe another Mouse player to decide, okay, we're not the group is not sticking together. Maybe somewhere else is a better place for me as well.
Yeah.
So really one change could become two very quickly after that. So if somebody does get swayed, at some point for whatever reason, it either one of the other big teams that we didn't expect would come and change Navi, that we were talking about, or Falcons come in with some massive fucking offer that you cannot refuse type thing. We've seen that happen, but it is a possibility. It really isn't out of this world, and things can change at this point still. There's still a lot of space for it to change. So it's not, I don't know where I would put that though. It's still unlikely for me. I would give it a 30.
I'm also going to boost mine to 25. I just wanted to
I
add
went
this
35%, Lucas.
There you go. Lucas was sleeping at the wheel for a moment there. It's pretty okay. We're pretty.
I think we're being
balanced.
modest with it.
I think Twitch is where we would have been before we would have heard the most recent kind of rumors, because I think we were all kind of looking at Mouse probably being the team that's going to get picked apart. We probably would have been closer to 50%, maybe even a couple of weeks ago or a month ago we had those conversations, but it just seems that realistically it doesn't seem like it's heading that direction at the moment.
I feel like it's for the people at home, you should be going with yes, because
we set the bar low.
Yeah, we did. And we could be so wrong. It's just based off the information that is available now. That's the thought. But I guess it's not as exciting as it seemed, or at least it's not as exciting right now as it seems. But maybe that will change. Which that's life. Everybody, things change from day to day. You go to bed, you wake up. It could be different out there. You never know.
Banger comment.
Just go
in the
out
chat.
there and see what.
Yeah, banger comment in the chat. So Oscar123 asked, "Is Falcons bad for integrity of esports?" And reply from Doppelgrass says, "So far, Falcons have been bad for the eyes when watching them."
That's true. That is true. They have been very bad for the eyes.
Yeah.
They make you look
eyes.
away. It's like a car crash that nobody wants to watch. Yeah, okay.
But you do anyway.
So you have to, right? Because it's in slow motion and you just want to see it all fall apart really at the end of the day. Okay, all right. That is What Are the Odds brought to you by 1xBet. Mouse lose more than one player in the roster change. You guys can have your vote on social media. It'll be on Twitter. It'll be on Instagram. You guys can vote in those polls. And didn't we have one that didn't come true recently? Mouse didn't win a big arena event in 2024.
Yeah.
Didn't we have that one?
Yeah, that's that one. That was kind of sad.
Were the people right or were the people wrong?
People are wrong because they're
Fucking
optimists.
hell, people.
They're
Well, that's good. I'm
optimists.
glad.
Did we
It's better
we
to be
vote
optimistic.
for yes or no?
I think we were inclined towards the
Like
yes.
hedging. Okay.
Yeah, it was slightly.
Oh, we fucking suck as well then, didn't we? We did talk about complexity briefly, but I don't like that's the thing. Their entire team is based on if Elige leaves. If Elige gets sold to another team,
I mean,
then
they're screwed, right? Like we know
Yeah.
they're just kind of fucked. They can
It's
try
all
building
over.
back up, but it's just going to be a top 20 borderline team at best.
And M80 ain't selling for cheap. Let's just say that much. Liquid Talk, I don't know. There's probably not a whole lot going on there. I think Yakindo's in a conversation, but like they could be a part of some big moves. Like I'm sure that if there was FaZe members available, then they'd love to get some of them because of the Twist relationship. But
Messi
I
also
don't know.
says we don't need to talk about complexity. Move on. I like that.
Good for him. One thing that I wouldn't mind mentioning, and I think what we should do is, I don't know what our plans are for the next show, but when we come back into the new year, we should definitely try and do a show. Maybe we could even do one. We should try and
we
do one
have
in the
like
new year.
2 weeks until the end of the year, so we can fit in like a few episodes here. I feel
Okay,
like we need to like make up for not doing anything for 3 weeks.
For a month.
I think what we should do then is have a conversation regarding like next year in the circuit a little bit more to drill that one home one more time. Obviously, we had a chat with Messioso earlier in the year, but I don't know how many conversations you guys had with Val, but one of the big ones was regarding the circuit for next year. And
I got a lot more insight, I would say, and understanding. I don't know about you, but and 30% more optimism about how things are looking, to be honest.
They feel like they're willing to roll with the punches, right? Like they're not gonna. Then they like the guidelines that have been put in place. I think we looked at as hard and fast rules, which is more like very bendable things that if you go to them and you say we want to do this, and it's actually bigger and better than what they had intended, then that's fine. But if it's more restrictive and the opposite, then I imagine the answer would be no. So we will. Let's do that. Let's come back with another episode and deep dive again, talking about next year's stuff. That we can go over the ESL stuff, we can go over the new PGL stuff, then and we can talk a bit more holistically about the year. Does that sound like a good idea?
I can just throw in some mentions. Obviously, we got not obviously, but we got the top 20 prediction little game going on HLTV now. So if you just go on HLTV, and it's going to be on the front page, so people can kind of make their own. I think it's going to be pretty fun this year. Also, there are some changes, so we have like little points if you're like near miss. That was not a thing previous years. And there are skins to win, so that's a good vibe. And also on the front page is the voting for the community awards. So kind of same as last year, we have like skin of the year as well. So we're giving some like nods to skin creators. Obviously, a big talking point this year for multiple reasons, but there's some good skins in there. So obviously, talent of the year, Chad won last year, and you did tell me this award changed your life. So be careful who you vote for, because it's a huge honor for sure to win that. I'm in an interesting predicament with it. Like I won another award this year, but I didn't talk about it or tweet about it because of the situation. So like I'm not gonna. I hope I don't upset you, Prof. But I'm not gonna retweet the stuff. You're not gonna
either
engage.
because
that's fine.
Last time it was you brought the runners up on the couch. Like I couldn't have thought of a more awkward situation to be going down. So vote for Just Harry, everybody.
This year, as you know, you'll not be leading this.
That's true.
This thing. That's it. Yeah. That's the improvement that we made for the show.
That was it's all for my benefit. Everybody vote for Just Harry. GG. That's my vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why Thorin isn't nominated for Content Creator of the Year? I saw this thread. It's literally just stats based, and he's not that high in the stats. To be honest, like Last Free Nation would be probably more likely to get nominated, but just the stats that we get from a agency that makes like a report on CS creators and stuff and ranks it on like 10 different parameters just wasn't in the top 10. That's more or less it.
I feel you said the same thing last year.
You have to say it every year because no one actually reads articles. They just look at the post on Twitter and is like, why isn't my guy there?
I don't look at posts on Twitter. You don't look at any of it. Close your eyes.
Close your eyes.
That's what I've been saying. I've been saying that for years. The internet's the worst and the best thing to ever happen to humanity. Everyone, look, I don't know if we'll be back before Christmas. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't. Christmas is Wednesday next week, so that's literally a week away, right? Some of you do it on the 24th. Some of you do it on the 25th. I don't know. You guys are all a little bit weird. But we've been going for about 2.5 hours. I'm sure these boys are quite tired. Prof's hungry. It's past my bedtime. So we've had a chat. We've wrapped up the major. It was another great year of Counter-Strike. But maybe we'll be back before the year ends. So we'll probably do another show. So I'm not going to do like some goodbye type thing or the year was great, because we'll be back. Maybe. Anyway, shout out to 1xBet. Shout out to Skin Place. We'll see you guys next time.
The world is changing quickly. Shoot it.
The world is changing, but one thing remains the same. Victories with 1xBet.
Sell in-game items at the best prices in just a couple of clicks. We are the biggest instant sell service for in-game items like Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, and Rust. Easy selling process and instant withdrawal of funds to the most popular payment methods. More than 140,000 deals and 50,000 active sellers every month. Use promo code HLTV5 and get a 5% bonus on the sale of your skins. Skin Place. Sell items now.
Since the dawn of CSGO, we have been there. Observers of all that competition can reveal. Elation, fear, triumph, and heartache reach out from every frame. From the small studios and conference rooms to the epic arenas, the feeling is still the same. We live and breathe this game. This was CSGO Through the Lens. Buy now at hltv.org/shop.